Social engineering. What is social engineering? Social engineering is the term used for a broad range of malicious activities accomplished through human interactions. It uses psychological manipulation to trick users into making security mistakes or giving away sensitive information. Social engineering attacks happen in one or more steps. A perpetrator first investigates the intended victim to gather necessary background information, such as potential points of entry and weak security protocols needed to proceed with the attack. Then the attacker moves to gain the victim's trust and provide stimuli for subsequent actions that break security practices, such as revealing sensitive information or granting access to critical resources. Social engineering attack life cycle. What makes social engineering especially dangerous is that it relies on human error rather than vulnerabilities in software and operating systems. Mistakes made by legitimate users are much less predictable, making them harder to identify and thwart than a malware-based intrusion. Social engineering attack techniques. Social engineering attacks come in many different forms and can be performed anywhere where human interaction is involved. The following are the 5 most common forms of digital social engineering assaults. Baiting. As its name implies, baiting attacks use a false promise to pique a victim's greed or curiosity. They lure users into a trap that steals their personal information or inflicts their systems with malware. The most reviled form of baiting uses physical media to disperse malware. For example, attackers leave the bait, typically malware-infested flash drives, in conspicuous areas where potential victims are certain to see them. For example, bathrooms, elevators, the parking lot of a targeted company. The bait has an authentic look to it, such as a label presenting it as the company's payroll list. Victims pick up the bait out of curiosity and insert it into a work or home computer, resulting in automatic malware installation on the system. Baiting scams don't necessarily have to be carried out in the physical world. Online forms of baiting consist of enticing ads that lead to malicious sites or that encourage users to download a malware-infected application. Scareware. Scareware involves victims being bombarded with false alarms and fictitious threats. Users are deceived to think their system is infected with malware, prompting them to install software that has no real benefit, other than for the perpetrator, or is malware itself. Scareware is also referred to as deception software, rogue scanner software, and fraudware. A common scareware example is the legitimate-looking pop-up banners appearing in your browser while surfing the web, displaying such text as, "Your computer may be infected with harmful spyware programs." It either offers to install the tool, often malware-infected, for you, or will direct you to a malicious site where your computer becomes infected. Scareware is also distributed via spam email and doles out bogus warnings or makes offers for users to buy worthless or harmful services. Pretexting. Here, an attacker obtains information through a series of cleverly crafted lies. The scam is often initiated by a perpetrator pretending to need sensitive information from a victim to perform a critical task. The attacker usually starts by establishing trust with their victim by impersonating coworkers, police, bank and tax officials, or other persons who have a right-to-know authority. The pretexter asks questions that are ostensibly required to confirm the victim's identity, through which they gather important personal data. All sorts of pertinent information and records is gathered using this scam, such as social security numbers, personal addresses and phone numbers, phone records, staff vacation dates, bank records, and even security information related to a physical plant. Response to a question you never had. Criminals may pretend to be responding to your request for help from a company while also offering more help. They pick companies that millions of people use, such as a software company or bank. If you don't use the product or service, you'll ignore the email, phone call, or message. But if you do happen to use the service, there is a good chance you will respond, because you probably do want help with a problem. For example, even though you know you didn't originally ask a question, you probably have a problem with your computer's operating system and you seize on this opportunity to get it fixed, for free. The moment you respond, you have bought the crook's story, given them your trust, and opened yourself up for exploitation. The representative, who is actually a criminal, will need to authenticate you, have you log into their system, or have you log into your computer and either give them remote access to your computer so they can fix it for you, or tell you the commands so you can fix it yourself with their help, where some of the commands they tell you to enter will open a way for the criminal to get back into your computer later. Creating distrust. Some social engineering is all about creating distrust or starting conflicts. These are often carried out by people you know and who are angry with you, but it is also done by nasty people just trying to wreak havoc, people who want to first create distrust in your mind about others, so they can then step in as a hero and gain your trust, or by extortionists who want to manipulate information and then threaten you with disclosure. This form of social engineering often begins by gaining access to an email account or another communication account on an IM client, social network, chat, forum, etc. They accomplish this either by hacking, social engineering, or simply guessing weak passwords. The malicious person may then alter sensitive or private communications, including images and audio, using basic editing techniques, and forwards these to other people to create drama, distrust, embarrassment, etc. They may make it look like it was accidentally sent or appear like they are letting you know what is really going on. Alternatively, they may use the altered material to extort money either from the person they hacked or from the supposed recipient. There are literally thousands of variations to social engineering attacks. The only limit to the number of ways they can socially engineer users through this kind of exploit is the criminal's imagination. And you may experience multiple forms of exploits in a single attack. Then the criminal is likely to sell your information to others so they too can run their exploits against you, your friends' friends, and so on as the criminals leverage people's misplaced trust. Physical breach attacks. Physical breaches involve attackers appearing in person, posing as someone legitimate to gain access to otherwise unauthorized areas or information. Attacks of this nature are most common in enterprise environments, such as governments, businesses, or other organizations. Attackers may pretend to be a representative of a known trusted vendor for the company. Some attackers may even be recently fired employees with a vendetta against their former employer. They make their identity obscure but believable enough to avoid questions. This requires a bit of research on the attacker's part and involves high risk. So if someone is attempting this method, they've identified clear potential for a highly valuable reward if successful. Pretexting attacks. Pretexting uses a deceptive identity as the pretext for establishing trust, such as directly impersonating a vendor or a facility employee. This approach requires the attacker to interact with you more proactively. The exploit follows once they've convinced you they are legitimate. Access tailgating attacks. Tailgating or piggybacking is the act of trailing an authorized staff member into a restricted access area. Attackers may play on social courtesy to get you to hold the door for them or convince you that they are also authorized to be in the area. Pretexting can play a role here, too. Quid pro quo attacks. Quid pro quo is a term roughly meaning a favor for a favor, which in the context of phishing means an exchange of your personal information for some reward or other compensation. Giveaways or offers to take part in research studies might expose you to this type of attack. The exploit comes from getting you excited for something valuable that comes with a low investment on your end. However, the attacker simply takes your data with no reward to you. Don't become a victim. While phishing attacks are rampant, short-lived, and need only a few users to take the bait for a successful campaign, there are methods for protecting yourself. Most don't require much more than simply paying attention to the details in front of you. Keep the following in mind to avoid being phished yourself. Tips to remember. Slow down. Spammers want you to act first and think later. If the message conveys a sense of urgency or uses high-pressure sales tactics, be skeptical. Never let their urgency influence your careful review. Research the facts. Be suspicious of any unsolicited messages. If the email looks like it is from a company you use, do your own research. Use a search engine to go to the real company's site or a phone directory to find their phone number. Don't let a link be in control of where you land. Stay in control by finding the website yourself, using a search engine to be sure you land where you intend to land. Hovering over links in your email will show the actual URL at the bottom, but a good fake can still steer you wrong. Email hijacking is rampant. Hackers, spammers, and social engineers taking over control of people's email accounts and other communication accounts has become rampant. Once they control an email account, they prey on the trust of the person's contacts. Even when the sender appears to be someone you know, if you aren't expecting an email with a link or attachment, check with your friend before opening links or downloading. Beware of any download. If you don't know the sender personally and expect a file from them, downloading anything is a mistake. Foreign offers are fake. If you receive an email from a foreign lottery or sweepstakes, money from an unknown relative, or requests to transfer funds from a foreign country for a share of the money, it's guaranteed to be a scam. Ways to protect yourself. Delete any request for financial information or passwords. If you get asked to reply to a message with personal information, it's a scam. Reject requests for help or offers of help. Legitimate companies and organizations do not contact you to provide help. If you did not specifically request assistance from the sender, consider any offer to help restore credit scores, refinance a home, answer your question, etc. a scam. Similarly, if you receive a request for help from a charity or organization that you do not have a relationship with, delete it. To give, seek out reputable charitable organizations on your own to avoid falling for a scam. Set your spam filters to high. Every email program has spam filters. To find yours, look at your settings options and set these to high. Just remember to check your spam folder periodically to see if any legitimate email has been accidentally trapped there. You can also search for a step-by-step guide to setting your spam filters by searching on the name of your email provider plus the phrase spam filters. Secure your computing devices. Install antivirus software, firewalls, email filters, and keep these up to date. Set your operating system to automatically update, and if your smartphone doesn't automatically update, manually update it whenever you receive a notice to do so. Use an anti-phishing tool offered by your web browser or third party to alert you to risks. Botnet attacks. What is a botnet? Botnet definition. Botnets are networks of hijacked computer devices used to carry out various scams and cyber attacks. The term botnet is formed from the words robot and network. Assembly of a botnet is usually the infiltration stage of a multi-layer scheme. The bots serve as a tool to automate mass attacks, such as data theft, server crashing, and malware distribution. Botnets use your devices to scam other people or cause disruptions, all without your consent. You might ask, what is a botnet attack and how does it work? To expand this botnet definition, we'll help you understand how botnets are made and how they are used. How botnets work. Botnets are built to grow, automate, and speed up a hacker's ability to carry out larger attacks. One person, or even a small team of hackers, can only carry out so many actions on their local devices. But at little cost and a bit of time invested, they can acquire tons of additional machines to leverage for more efficient operations. A bot herder leads a collective of hijacked devices with remote commands. Once they've compiled the bots, a herder uses command programming to drive their next actions. The party taking command duties may have set up the botnet or be operating it as a rental. Zombie computers, or bots, refer to each malware-infected user device that's been taken over for use in the botnet. These devices operate mindlessly under commands designed by the bot herder. The basic stages of building a botnet can be simplified into a few steps. 1. Prep and expose. The hacker exploits a vulnerability to expose users to malware. 2. Infect. Users' devices are infected with malware that can take control of their device. 3. Activate. Hackers mobilize infected devices to carry out attacks. Stage 1 exposure starts with hackers finding a vulnerability in a website, application, or human behavior. The goal is to set the user up for being unknowingly exposed to a malware infection. You'll commonly see hackers exploit security issues in software or websites, or deliver the malware through emails or other online messages. In Stage 2, the user gets infected with the botnet malware upon taking an action that compromises their device. Many of these methods either involve users being persuaded via social engineering to download a special Trojan virus. Other attackers may be more aggressive by using a drive-by download upon visiting an infected site. Regardless of the delivery method, cybercriminals ultimately breach the security of several users' computers. Once the hacker is ready, Stage 3 initiates by taking control of each computer. The attacker organizes all the infected machines into a network of bots that they can remotely manage. Often, the cybercriminal will seek to infect and control thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions of computers. The cybercriminal can then act as the boss of a large zombie network, that is, a fully assembled and active botnet. You're probably still asking, what does a botnet do? Once infected, a zombie computer allows access to admin-level operations, such as reading and writing system data, gathering the user's personal data, sending files and other data, monitoring the user's activities, searching for vulnerabilities in other devices, installing and running any applications. What is botnet controllable? Candidates for botnet recruitment can be any device that can access an internet connection. Many devices we use today have some form of computer within them, even ones you might not consider. Nearly any computer-based internet device is vulnerable to a botnet, meaning the threat is growing constantly. To protect yourself, take note of some common devices that are hijacked into botnets. Traditional computers like desktops and laptops that run on Windows OS or Mac OS have long been popular targets for botnet construction. Mobile devices have become another target as more people continue to use them. Smartphones and tablets have notably been included in botnet attacks of the past. Internet infrastructure hardware used to enable and support Internet connections may also be co-opted into botnets. Network routers and web servers are known to be targets. Internet of Things, or IoT devices, include any connected devices that share data between others via the Internet. Alongside computers and mobile devices, examples might include smart home devices, thermostats, security cameras, televisions, speakers, etc. In-vehicle infotainment, IVI, wearable devices, smartwatches, fitness trackers, etc. Collectively, all these devices can be corrupted to create massive botnets. The technology market has become oversaturated with low-cost, low-security devices, leaving you particularly vulnerable as a user. Without antivirus malware, bot herders can infect your devices unnoticed. How do hackers control a botnet? Issuing commands is a vital part of controlling a botnet. However, anonymity is just as important to the attacker. As such, botnets are operated via remote programming. Command and Control, CNC, is the server source of all botnet instruction and leadership. This is the bot herder's main server, and each of the zombie computers gets commands from it. Each botnet can be led by commands, either directly or indirectly, in the following models: centralized client-server models, decentralized peer-to-peer or P2P models. Centralized models are driven by one bot herder server. A variation on this model may insert additional servers tasked as subherders or proxies. However, all commands trickle down from the bot herder in both centralized and proxy-based hierarchies. Either structure leaves the bot herder open to being discovered, which makes these dated methods less than ideal. Decentralized models embed the instruction responsibilities across all the zombie computers. As long as the bot herder can contact any one of the zombie computers, they can spread the commands to the others. The peer-to-peer structure further obscures the identity of the bot herder party. With clear advantages over older centralized models, P2P is more common today. What are botnets used for? Botnet creators always have something to gain, whether for money or personal satisfaction. Financial theft, by extorting or directly stealing money. Information theft, for access to sensitive or confidential accounts. Sabotage of services by taking services and websites offline, etc. Cryptocurrency scams, using users' processing power to mine for cryptocurrency. Selling access to other criminals to permit further scams on unsuspecting users. Most of the motives for building a botnet are similar to those of other cybercrimes. In many cases, these attackers either want to steal something valuable or cause troubles for others. In some cases, cybercriminals will establish and sell access to a large network of zombie machines. The buyers are usually other cybercriminals that pay either on a rental basis or as an outright sale. For example, spammers may rent or buy a network to operate a large-scale spam campaign. Despite the many potential benefits for a hacker, some people create botnets just because they can. Regardless of motive, botnets end up being used for all types of attacks, both on the botnet-controlled users and other people. Types of botnet attacks. While botnets can be an attack in themselves, they are an ideal tool to execute secondary scams and cybercrimes on a massive scale. Common botnet schemes include some of the following. Distributed Denial of Service, DDoS, is an attack based on overloading a server with web traffic to crash it. Zombie computers are tasked with swarming websites and other online services, resulting in them being taken down for some time. Phishing schemes imitate trusted people and organizations for tricking them out of their valuable information. Typically, this involves a large-scale spam campaign meant to steal user account information like banking logins or email credentials. Brute force attacks run programs designed to breach web accounts by force. Dictionary attacks and credential stuffing are used to exploit weak user passwords and access their data. How to protect yourself from botnets. Considering the threats to the safety of yourself and others, it's imperative that you protect yourself from botnet malware. Fortunately, software protections and small changes to your computer habits can help. 6 tips for protecting yourself against botnets. 1. Improve all user passwords for smart devices. Using complex and long passwords will help your devices stay safer than weak or short passwords, such as pass12345. 2. Avoid buying devices with weak security. While this isn't always easy to spot, many cheap home gadgets tend to prioritize user convenience over security. Research reviews on a product's safety and security features before buying. 3. Update admin settings and passwords across all your devices. You'll want to check all possible privacy and security options on anything that connects device to device or to the Internet. Even smart refrigerators and Bluetooth-equipped vehicles have default manufacturer passwords to access their software systems. Without updates to custom login credentials and private connectivity, hackers can breach and infect each of your connected devices. 4. Be wary of any email attachments. The best approach is to completely avoid downloading attachments. When you need to download an attachment, carefully investigate and verify the sender's email address. Also, consider using antivirus software that proactively scans attachments for malware before you download. 5. Never click links in any message you receive. Texts, emails, and social media messages can all be reliable vehicles for botnet malware. Manually entering the link into the address bar will help you avoid DNS cache poisoning and drive-by downloads. Also, take an extra step to search for an official version of the link. 6. Install effective antivirus software. A strong Internet security suite will help protect your computer against Trojans and other threats. Be sure to get a product that covers all your devices, including Android phones and tablets. Botnets are difficult to stop once they've taken root in users' devices. To reduce phishing attacks and other issues, be sure you guard each of your devices against this malicious hijack. Brute force attacks. What's a brute force attack? A brute force attack uses trial and error to guess login info, encryption keys, or find a hidden web page. Hackers work through all possible combinations, hoping to guess correctly. These attacks are done by brute force, meaning they use excessive forceful attempts to try and force their way into your private accounts. This is an old attack method, but it's still effective and popular with hackers, because depending upon the length and complexity of the password, cracking it can take anywhere from a few seconds to many years. What do hackers gain from brute force attacks? Brute force attackers must put in a bit of effort to make these schemes pay off. While technology does make it easier, you might still question, why would someone do this? Here's how hackers benefit from brute force attacks. Profiting from ads or collecting activity data. Stealing personal data and valuables. Spreading malware to cause disruptions. Hijacking your system for malicious activity. Ruining a website's reputation. Profiting from ads or collecting activity data. Hackers can exploit a website alongside others to earn advertising commissions. Popular ways to do this include putting spam ads on a well-traveled site to make money each time an ad is clicked or viewed by visitors. Rerouting a website's traffic to commissioned ad sites. Infecting a site or its visitors with activity tracking malware, commonly spyware. Data is sold to advertisers without your consent to help them improve their marketing. Stealing personal data and valuables. Breaking into online accounts can be like cracking open a bank vault. Everything from bank accounts to tax information can be found online. All it takes is the right break-in for a criminal to steal your identity, money, or sell your private credentials for profit. Sometimes, sensitive databases from entire organizations can be exposed in corporate-level data breaches. Spreading malware to cause disruptions for the sake of it. If a hacker wants to cause trouble or practice their skills, they might redirect a website's traffic to malicious sites. Alternatively, they may directly infect a site with concealed malware to be installed on visitors' computers. Hijacking your system for malicious activity. When one machine isn't enough, hackers enlist an army of unsuspecting devices called a botnet to speed up their efforts. Malware can infiltrate your computer, mobile device, or online accounts for spam phishing, enhanced brute force attacks, and more. If you don't have an antivirus system, you may be more at risk of infection. Ruining a website's reputation. If you run a website and become a target of vandalism, a cybercriminal might decide to infest your site with obscene content. This might include text, images, and audio of a violent, pornographic, or racially offensive nature. Types of brute force attacks. Each brute force attack can use different methods to uncover your sensitive data. You might be exposed to any of the following popular brute force methods. Simple brute force attacks. Dictionary attacks. Hybrid brute force attacks. Reverse brute force attacks. Credential stuffing. Simple brute force attacks. Hackers attempt to logically guess your credentials, completely unassisted from software tools or other means. These can reveal extremely simple passwords and PINs. For example, a password that is set as guest12345. Dictionary attacks. In a standard attack, a hacker chooses a target and runs possible passwords against that username. These are known as dictionary attacks. Dictionary attacks are the most basic tool in brute force attacks. While not necessarily being brute force attacks in themselves, these are often used as an important component for password cracking. Some hackers run through unabridged dictionaries and augment words with special characters and numerals, or use special dictionaries of words, but this type of sequential attack is cumbersome. Hybrid brute force attacks. These hackers blend outside means with their logical guesses to attempt a break-in. A hybrid attack usually mixes dictionary and brute force attacks. These attacks are used to figure out combo passwords that mix common words with random characters. A brute force attack example of this nature would include passwords such as New York 1993 or Spike 1234. Reverse brute force attacks. Just as the name implies, a reverse brute force attack reverses the attack strategy by starting with a known password. Then hackers search millions of usernames until they find a match. Many of these criminals start with leaked passwords that are available online from existing data breaches. Credential stuffing. If a hacker has a username-password combo that works for one website, they'll try it in tons of others as well. Since users have been known to reuse login info across many websites, They are the exclusive targets of an attack like this. Tools aid brute force attempts. Guessing a password for a user or site can take a long time, so hackers have developed tools to do the job faster. Automated tools help with brute force attacks. These use rapid-fire guessing that is built to create every possible password and attempt to use them. Brute force attacking software can find a single dictionary word password within a second. Tools like these have workarounds programmed in them to work against many computer protocols like FTP, MySQL, SMTP, and Telnet. Allow hackers to crack wireless modems. Identify weak passwords. Decrypt passwords in encrypted storage. Translate words into Lee speak. Don't hack me becomes D0N7H4CKM3, which looks like don't hack me at a quick glance. Run all possible combinations of characters. Operate dictionary attacks. Some tools scan pre-compute rainbow tables for the inputs and outputs of known hash functions. These hash functions are the algorithm-based encryption methods used to translate passwords into long, fixed-length series of letters and numbers. In other words, rainbow tables remove the hardest part of brute force attacking to speed up the process. GPU speeds brute force attempts. Tons of computer brainpower is needed to run brute force password software. Unfortunately, hackers have worked out hardware solutions to make this part of the job a lot easier. Combining the CPU and graphics processing unit, or GPU, accelerates computing power. By adding the thousands of computing cores in the GPU for processing, this enables the system to handle multiple tasks at once. GPU processing is used for analytics, engineering, and other computing-intensive applications. Hackers using this method can crack passwords about 250 times faster than a CPU alone. So how long would it take to crack a password? To put it in perspective, a 6-character password that includes numbers has approximately 2 billion possible combinations. Cracking it with a powerful CPU that tries 30 passwords per second takes more than 2 years. Adding a single powerful GPU card lets the same computer test 7,100 passwords per second and crack the password in 3.5 days. Steps to protect passwords for professionals. To keep yourself and your network safe, you'll want to take your precautions and help others do so as well. User behavior and network security systems will both need reinforcement. For IT specialists and users alike, you'll want to take a few general pieces of advice to heart. Use an advanced username and password. Protect yourself with credentials that are stronger than admin and password 1234 to keep out these attackers. The stronger this combination is, the harder it will be for anyone to penetrate it. Remove any unused accounts with high-level permissions. These are the cyber equivalent of doors with weak locks that make breaking in easy. Unmaintained accounts are a vulnerability you can't risk. Throw them away as soon as possible. Once you've got the basics down, you'll want to bolster your security and get users on board. We'll begin with what you can do on the back end, then give tips to support safe habits. Passive back-end protections for passwords. High encryption rates. To make it harder for brute force attacks to succeed, system administrators should ensure that passwords for their systems are encrypted with the highest encryption rates possible, such as 256-bit encryption. The more bits in the encryption scheme, the harder the password is to crack. Salt the hash. Administrators should also randomize password hashes by adding a random string of letters and numbers, called salt, to the password itself. This string should be stored in a separate database and retrieved and added to the password before it's hashed. By salting the hash, users with the same password have different hashes. Two-factor authentication, 2FA. Additionally, administrators can require two-step authentication and install an intrusion detection system that detects brute force attacks. This requires users to follow up a login attempt with a second factor, like a physical USB key or fingerprint biometric scan. Limit the number of login retries. Limiting the number of attempts also reduces susceptibility to brute force attacks. For example, allowing 3 attempts to enter the correct password before locking out the user for several minutes can cause significant delays and cause hackers to move on to easier targets. Account lockdown after excessive login attempts. If a hacker can endlessly keep retrying passwords even after a temporary lockout, they can return to try again. Locking the account and requiring the user to contact IT for unlock will deter this activity. Short lockout timers are more convenient for users, but convenience can be a vulnerability. To balance this, you might consider using the long-term lockdown if there are excessive failed logins after the short one. Throttle rate of repeated logins. You can further slow an attacker's efforts by creating space between each single login attempt. Once a login fails, a timer can deny login until a short amount of time has passed. This will leave lag time for your real-time monitoring team to spot and work on stopping this threat. Some hackers might stop trying if the wait is not worth it. Required CAPTCHA after repeated login attempts. Manual verification does stop robots from brute forcing their way into your data. CAPTCHA comes in many types, including retyping the text in an image, checking a checkbox, or identifying objects in pictures. Regardless of what you use, you can use this before the first login and after each failed attempt to protect further. Use an IP deny list to block known attackers. Be sure that this list is constantly updated by those who manage it. Active IT support protections for passwords. Password education. User behavior is essential to password security. Educate users on safe practices and tools to help them keep track of their passwords. Watch accounts in real time for strange activity, odd login locations, excessive login attempts, etc. Work to find trends in unusual activity and take measures to block any potential attackers in real time. Look out for IP address blocks, account lockdown, and contact users to determine if account activity is legitimate if it looks suspicious. How users can strengthen passwords against brute force attacks. As a user, you can do a lot to support your protection in the digital world. The best defense against password attacks is ensuring that your passwords are as strong as they can be. Brute force attacks rely on time to crack your password, so your goal is to make sure your password slows down these attacks as much as possible, because if it takes too long for the breach to be worthwhile, most hackers will give up and move on. Here are a few ways you can strengthen passwords against brute force attacks. Longer passwords with varied character types. When possible, users should choose 10-character passwords that include symbols or numbers. Doing so creates 171.3 quintillion possibilities. Using a GPU processor that tries 10.3 billion hashes per second, cracking the password would take approximately 526 years, although a supercomputer could crack it within a few weeks. By this logic, including more characters makes your password even harder to solve. Elaborate passphrases. Not all sites accept such long passwords, which means you should choose complex passphrases rather than single words. Dictionary attacks are built specifically for single-word phrases and make a breach nearly effortless. Passphrases, passwords composed of multiple words or segments, should be sprinkled with extra characters and special character types. Create rules for building your passwords. The best passwords are those you can remember but won't make sense to anyone else reading them. When taking the passphrase route, consider using truncated words, like replacing would with WD, to create a string that makes sense only to you. Other examples might include dropping vowels or using only the first 2 letters of each word. Stay away from frequently used passwords. It's important to avoid the most common passwords and to change them frequently. Use unique passwords for every site you use. To avoid being a victim of credential stuffing, you should never reuse a password. If you want to take your security up a notch, use a different username for every site as well. You can keep other accounts from getting compromised if one of yours is breached. Use a password manager. Installing a password manager automates creating and keeping track of your online login info. These allow you to access all your accounts by first logging into the password manager. You can then create extremely long and complex passwords for all the sites you visit, store them safely, and you only have to remember the one primary password. Man-in-the-middle attacks. What is a man-in-the-middle attack? A man-in-the-middle (MITM) attack is a general term for when a perpetrator positions himself in a conversation between a user and an application, either to eavesdrop or to impersonate one of the parties, making it appear as if a normal exchange of information is underway. The goal of an attack is to steal personal information such as login credentials, account details, and credit card numbers. Targets are typically the users of financial applications, software-as-a-service businesses, e-commerce sites, and other websites where logging in is required. Information obtained during an attack could be used for many purposes, including identity theft, unapproved fund transfers, or an illicit password change. Additionally, it can be used to gain a foothold inside a secured perimeter during the infiltration stage of an advanced persistent threat (APT) assault. Broadly speaking, an MITM attack is the equivalent of a mailman opening your bank statement, writing down your account details, and then resealing the envelope and delivering it to your door. Man-in-the-middle attack example. MITM attack progression. Successful MITM execution has two distinct phases, interception and decryption. Interception. The first step intercepts user traffic through the attacker's network before it reaches its intended destination. The most common and simplest way of doing this is a passive attack in which an attacker makes free, malicious Wi-Fi hotspots available to the public. Typically named in a way that corresponds to their location, they aren't password protected. Once a victim connects to such a hotspot, the attacker gains full visibility to any online data exchange. Attackers wishing to take a more active approach to interception may launch one of the following attacks. IP spoofing involves an attacker disguising himself as an application by altering packet headers in an IP address. As a result, users attempting to access a URL connected to the application are sent to the attacker's website. ARP spoofing is the process of linking an attacker's MAC address with the IP address of a legitimate user on a local area network using fake ARP messages. As a result, data sent by the user to the host IP address is instead transmitted to the attacker. DNS spoofing, also known as DNS cache poisoning, involves infiltrating a DNS server and altering a website's address record. As a result, users attempting to access the site are sent by the altered DNS record to the attacker's site. Decryption. After interception, any two-way SSL traffic needs to be decrypted without alerting the user or application. Several methods exist to achieve this. HTTPS spoofing sends a phony certificate to the victim's browser once the initial connection request to a secure site is made. It holds a digital thumbprint associated with a compromised application, which the browser verifies according to an existing list of trusted sites. The attacker is then able to access any data entered by the victim before it's passed to the application. SSL Beast, browser exploit against SSL/TLS, targets a TLS version 1.0 vulnerability in SSL. Here, the victim's computer is infected with malicious JavaScript that intercepts encrypted cookies sent by a web application. Then the app's cipher block chaining, or CBC, is compromised so as to decrypt its cookies and authentication tokens. SSL hijacking occurs when an attacker passes forged authentication keys to both the user and application during a TCP handshake. This sets up what appears to be a secure connection when in fact the man in the middle controls the entire session. SSL stripping downgrades an HTTPS connection to HTTP by intercepting the TLS authentication sent from the application to the user. The attacker sends an unencrypted version of the application site to the user while maintaining the secured session with the application. Meanwhile, the user's entire session is visible to the attacker. Man-in-the-middle attack prevention. Blocking MITM attacks requires several practical steps on the part of users, as well as a combination of encryption and verification methods for applications. For users, this means avoiding Wi-Fi connections that aren't password protected, paying attention to browser notifications reporting a website as being unsecured, immediately logging out of a secure application when it's not in use, not using public networks, for example, coffee shops and hotels, when conducting sensitive transactions. For website operators, secure communication protocols, including TLS and HTTPS, help mitigate spoofing attacks by robustly encrypting and authenticating transmitted data. Doing so prevents the interception of site traffic and blocks the decryption of sensitive data, such as authentication tokens. It is considered best practice for applications to use SSL/TLS to secure every page of their site, and not just the pages that require users to log in. Doing so helps decrease the chance of an attacker stealing session cookies from a user browsing on an unsecured section of a website while logging in. Man-in-the-browser attacks. What is a man-in-the-browser, or MITB, attack? Man-in-the-browser is a form of man-in-the-middle attack where an attacker is able to insert himself into the communications channel between true trusting parties by compromising a web browser used by one of the parties for the purpose of eavesdropping, data theft, or session tampering. Man-in-the-browser is often used by attackers to carry out various forms of financial fraud, typically by manipulating Internet banking services. In order to compromise the browser, adversaries can take advantage of security vulnerabilities and/or manipulate inherent browser functionality to change content, modify behavior, and intercept information. Various forms of malware, most typically malware referred to as a Trojan horse, can be used to carry out this attack. One of the biggest differences between a man-in-the-middle attack and a man-in-the-browser attack is that the latter takes place at the application level, intercepting and altering browser content, instead of the network layer, intercepting and modifying data packets in transit. That means that the attack can succeed regardless of whether the site you're viewing is secured with SSL, HTTPS. First step to performing a MITB attack is to infect the target computer with malware. The target computer must be pre-infected with malware before the MITB attack can be carried out. This will typically be a Trojan horse. Once the target system has been successfully infected, the Trojan will modify the user's browser, usually in one of two ways. By running a malicious script that configures the victim's web browser to use a proxy server controlled by the attacker. By installing a compromised web browser extension controlled by the attacker. In either case, this provides the attacker with the ability to view the messages being sent and received by the infected browser and to alter them. The user will not receive any hints that something's amiss. The URL at the top of the browser will be correct, so inspecting it won't prevent the attack, and if enabled, the browser's malicious site warnings won't be triggered. The web page will appear completely legitimate, even though it's just been tampered with by the attacker. Social engineering is the attack vector. As with many, if not most online attacks, social engineering is where it all begins. When your computer is infected with an MITB Trojan, the entry point will typically have some form of social engineering, a fake Facebook post, a spam email with a malicious link or attachment, a dodgy pop-up window, etc. The Internet is a hostile place. Don't be too trusting. There's no shortage of those waiting to abuse your trust online. Treat the Internet like one big misleading infomercial and always look at the fine print. We'll provide some advice on avoiding Trojans toward the end of this article. Man-in-the-browser attack example. A successful MITB attack can control the victim's browser as follows. Add new columns or fields on the website or modify the existing fields. Change the appearance of the website. Alter the victim's form input, checkout pages, login forms, etc. Intercept the data transmitted by the user to the website, and vice versa. Modify the server's responses, things like confirmation messages and receipts. Remove traces of the fraudulent transaction when the user subsequently visits the site. A successful MITB attack could also hijack your session, steal your cookies to bypass logins, or perform a replay attack. Man-in-the-browser attack flow. Here's what a common MITB attack can look like. 1. The victim's computer is infected with a MITB Trojan through some form of social engineering or phishing, a fake Facebook post, spam email with a bogus link or attachment, etc. 2. The Trojan horse proceeds to modify the victim's browser using one of the methods above, a browser extension or a proxy servers. 3. The victim logs into their banking website to transfer some funds to their mother's account. 4. The attacker can see everything being sent and received by the victim's browser. 5. The victim enters all the information required to transfer the funds and confirms the transfer. 6. As the victim's request is being transmitted to the bank, it is intercepted and modified by the attacker to transfer the funds to an account controlled by the attacker rather than the victim's mother's account. 7. The attacker sends the victim a legitimate-looking confirmation page stating that the requested transfer was successful. It could take days for the victim to realize that the funds were not transferred to the intended account, and when they do, they may not immediately suspect that the issue was with their browser. And the bank will state that they received a request for the funds to be transferred to the attacker's account, and they'll be telling the truth. By this point, the account will likely be closed, and the entity behind it will be impossible to track down, and will probably not have been a real person to begin with. The above is just an example. MITB attacks don't follow a fixed playbook, other than being nasty attacks that tend to target your financial information. In the above example, the attacker could have inserted a new text field for additional personal information to be entered on the banking website to harvest that information to perpetrate another attack at a later date. If a user with an infected web browser accessed Facebook, it would replace any page visited by the victim with a page stating the victim's Facebook account had been temporarily locked. It further asked for a user's name, date of birth, email address, and password, and €20 to confirm their identity and unlock their account. How to detect an MITB attack? One of the nastier aspects of a man-in-the-browser attack is that it's very hard to detect. Please be suspicious and check the following. You notice extra or missing web page elements. You receive a login notification from a device you don't recognize. You're suddenly logged out of your account. Your antivirus detects malware on your computer. How to prevent man-in-the-browser attacks? I'm afraid there isn't much we can do to protect against MITB attacks, but that doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. It's just that what you can do is relatively benign. Here's a short list of what organizations and individuals can do to mitigate MITB attacks. Organizations. User account management. To minimize the opportunities for MITB attacks, organizations should implement strict user account permissions to prevent privilege escalation. This will limit the damage if an MITB attack is successful. User awareness. Organizations should provide basic online security training to their staff, covering topics like social engineering and how to detect a compromised computer, among other things. Individuals. Check common Trojan storage locations. Many MITB Trojans reside in the same location on your computer. Check the following directories for any unknown applications. If you find anything unfamiliar, look it up on the internet and scan it with antivirus software. The locations you should check are C:/program file, C:/program files, (x86), close paren, C:/windows/temp. Don't leave your web browser open. You should close your browser when you're done using it. Because the MITB attack is contained in your web browser, closing the browser interrupts the attack. It may be crude, but it works, even if its usefulness is limited. Better to avoid Trojans altogether. As you can see, the above measures are very much limited in scope. Your best bet to avoid Trojans in the first place. I'd recommend reading our dedicated article on Trojan horse malware for more information. But here are the main takeaways from that article on how to avoid Trojans. While nothing is 100%, these common sense tips should help. Install an antivirus and configure it to run scans at regular intervals. Many antivirus products can detect MITB Trojans. Use a firewall. All major operating systems have a built-in incoming firewall, and all commercial routers on the market have a built-in NAT firewall. Make sure that you enable them. Never click on pop-ups. If your browser displays a warning about a website you are trying to access, you should pay attention and get information you need elsewhere. Never download pirated software. Free products may sound enticing, but remember that those who upload them are often looking to make money, either by compromising your system themselves or selling your information to other web crooks. Only buy well-reviewed and genuine security software from legitimate vendors. Only open email attachments if you trust the sender and you're sure that you can verify their identity. Viruses do come in the mail, and that's why it's always a good idea to scan all your incoming mail with an antivirus program. Keep your programs up to date. Malware and viruses typically try and exploit security flaws found in outdated software. Make regular backups of your computer. If you receive an email asking for information while claiming to be from an official organization with which you have a relationship, read it very carefully before doing anything. Does it have spelling and grammar mistakes? Does it have an air of urgency? These are classic signs of a phishing attempt. And remember that your bank or the government will never ask you to send them sensitive information by email. Don't click links or URLs in emails unless you know exactly who sent the URL and where it links to. And even then, scrutinize the link. Is it an HTTP or an HTTPS link? Most legitimate sites use HTTPS today. Does the link contain spelling errors? Google with 3 O's instead of Google with 2. If you can get to the destination without using the link, do that instead. Malvertising attacks. What is malvertising? Malvertising is an attack in which perpetrators inject malicious code into legitimate online advertising networks. The code typically redirects users to malicious websites. The attack allows perpetrators to target users on highly reputable websites, for example, the New York Times Online, the London Stock Exchange, Spotify, and The Atlantic, all of which have been exposed to malvertising. The online advertising ecosystem is a complex network that involves publisher sites, ad exchanges, ad servers, retargeting networks, and content delivery networks, or CDNs. Multiple redirections between different servers occur after a user clicks on an ad. Attackers exploit this complexity to place malicious content in places that publishers and ad networks would least expect. Malvertising versus ad malware. Malvertising is typically confused with ad malware or adware, another form of malware affecting online advertisements. Adware is a program running on a user's computer. It's usually packaged with other legitimate software or is installed without the user's knowledge. Adware displays unwanted advertising, redirects search requests to advertising websites, and mines data about the user to help target or serve advertisements. Differences between malvertising and ad malware include: malvertising involves malicious code which is initially deployed on a publisher's web page. Adware, however, is only used to target individual users. Malvertising only affects users viewing an infected web page. Adware, once installed, operates continuously on a user's computer. How malvertisements affect web users. Malvertising might perform the following attacks on users viewing the malvertisement without clicking it: a drive-by download, installation of malware or adware on the computer of a user viewing the ad. This type of attack is usually made possible due to browser vulnerabilities. Forced redirect of the browser to a malicious site. Displaying unwanted advertising, malicious content, or pop-ups beyond the ads legitimately displayed by the ad network. This is done by executing JavaScript. Malvertising can do the following when users actually click a malicious ad. Execute code that installs malware or adware on a user's computer. Redirect the user to a malicious website instead of the target suggested by the ad's content. Redirecting the user to a malicious website very similar to a real site, which is operated by the attacker, a phishing attack. How malvertisements affect publishers. The threat to publishers is damaged reputation, loss of traffic and revenues, and legal liability to damages caused by users visiting their sites. While publishers are aware of the problem, they find it difficult to test for or block malicious ads. Ad networks serve ads from millions of advertisers and display ads dynamically according to real-time bidding, making it very difficult to test all the ads that are actually shown to users. Example: how malware is inserted into ads. Attackers use several delivery mechanisms to insert malicious code into ads. Malware in ad calls. When a website displays a page that contains an ad, the ad exchange pushes ads to the user via many third parties. One of these third-party servers may be compromised by an attacker who can add malicious code to the ad payload. Malware injected post-click. When a user clicks on an ad, they are typically redirected between several URLs, ending with the ad landing page. If an attacker compromises any of the URLs along this delivery path, they can execute malicious code. Malware in ad creative. Malware can be embedded in a text or banner ad. For example, in HTML5, it is possible to deliver an ad as a combination of images and JavaScript, which might contain malicious code. Ad networks that deliver ads in Flash.swf format are especially vulnerable. Malware within a pixel. Pixels are code embedded in an ad call or landing page, which send data to a server for tracking purposes. A legitimate pixel only sends data. If an attacker intercepts a pixel's delivery path, it can send a response containing malicious code to the user's browser. Malware within video. Video players do not protect against malware. For example, a standard video format called VAST contains pixels from third parties, which could contain malicious code. Videos can infect users by displaying a malicious URL at the end of the video. Malware within Flash video. Videos based on Flash can inject an iframe into the page, which downloads malware even without having the user click on the video. Flash files might also load a pre-roll banner, a static image that the user can view while the file is loading. Attackers can inject malicious code into the pre-roll banner, and it can run even without the user clicking on the video. Malware on a landing page. Even on legitimate landing pages served by reputable websites, there may be clickable elements that execute malicious code. This type of malware is particularly dangerous because users click an ad, land on a real legitimate landing page, but are infected by a malicious on-page element. Prevention and mitigation of malvertising. Malvertising is an attack which is difficult to detect and mitigate and requires action by end users and publishers alike. How can end users help mitigate malvertising? Antivirus software can protect against some drive-by downloads or malicious code executed by malvertising. Ad blockers offer good protection against malvertising because they block all ads together with their malicious elements. Avoiding the use of Flash and Java can protect users from many vulnerabilities that are commonly exploited by malvertising. Updating browsers and plugins can prevent many malvertising attacks, those which operate before the user clicks the ad. How publishers can help mitigate malvertising. Carefully vet ad networks and inquire about ad delivery paths and security practices. Scan ad creative intended for display to discover malware or unwanted code. If possible, enforce a policy of only showing specific file types in an ad frame, JPEG, PNG, etc., without allowing JavaScript or other code. Web Application Firewall, WAF, can help protect against some malvertising threats by using signature, behavioral, and reputational analysis to block malicious code execution or requests arriving from non-trusted sources along the ad delivery chain. Spyware attacks. Spyware definition. Spyware is loosely defined as malicious software designed to enter your computer device, gather data about you, and forward it to a third party without your consent. Spyware can also refer to legitimate software that monitors your data for commercial purposes like advertising. However, malicious spyware is explicitly used to profit from stolen data. Whether legitimate or based in fraud, spyware's surveillance activity leaves you open to data breaches and misuse of your private data. Spyware also affects networks and device performance, slowing down daily user activities. By becoming aware of how spyware works, you can avoid issues in enterprise and personal use. In this article, we'll help you answer the question, what is spyware and what does it do? And help you understand how to block spyware like Pegasus software. Also, check out this video with a brief explanation. What does spyware do? Before we dive deeper, you'll want to understand what does spyware do on your computer? All spyware peeks into your data and all your computer activity, whether authorized or not. However, many trusted computer services and applications use spyware-like tracking tools. As such, the spyware definition is reserved mostly for malicious application nowadays. Malicious spyware is a type of malware specifically installed without your informed consent. Step by step, spyware will take the following actions on your computer or mobile device. 1. Infiltrate via an app install package, malicious website, or file attachment. 2. Monitor and capture data via keystrokes, screen captures, and other tracking codes. 3. Send stolen data to the spyware author to be used directly or sold to other parties. In short, spyware communicates personal, confidential information about you to an attacker. The information gathered might be reported about your online browsing habits or purchases, but spyware code can also be modified to record more specific activities. Data compromised by spyware often includes collecting confidential information such as login credentials, passwords and usernames, account PINs, credit card numbers, monitored keyboard strokes, tracked browsing habits, and harvested email addresses. The methods by which spyware gets onto your computer and mobile devices can vary. How spyware infects your devices. Malicious spyware needs to mask itself carefully to install and operate unnoticed. Therefore, its methods of infection are usually obscured within seemingly normal downloads or websites. This malware may be in or alongside legitimate programs and websites via vulnerability exploits or in custom-designed fraudulent apps and sites. Bundleware or bundled software packages are a common delivery method for spyware. In this case, the software attaches itself to some other program you intentionally download and install. Some bundled spyware installs discreetly without warning. Other times, your desired software will describe and require the spyware in the license agreement without using that term. By forcing you to agree to the full software bundle to install the desired program, you are voluntarily and unknowingly infecting yourself. Alternatively, spyware can get into a computer through all the avenues that other malware takes, such as when a user visits a compromised website or opens a malicious attachment in an email. Note, be aware that spyware is different from viruses. While both are types of malware that hide within your device, viruses are designed to replicate and embed into your other device files. Spyware does not have this replication trait. Therefore, terms like spy virus are not accurate. Types of spyware. Spyware is generally classified into 4 main categories. 1. Trojan spyware enters devices via Trojan malware, which delivers the spyware program. 2. Adware may monitor you to sell data to advertisers or serve deceptive malicious ads. 3. Tracking cookie files can be implanted by a website to follow you across the Internet. 4. System monitors track any activity on a computer, capturing sensitive data, such as keystrokes, sites visited, emails, and more. Keyloggers typically fall into this group. Each type gathers data for the author or a third party, all to be used to the attacker's benefit. The lesser of these harmful types will simply monitor and send your data off to the attacker, like tracking cookies. System monitors and adware are far worse, as they can gather data and may also make modifications to your system that expose you to other threats. In explaining why spyware is bad, we must unpack the explicit problems you can face when exposed to spyware. Examples of problems caused by spyware. Spyware can be incredibly dangerous if you've been infected. Threats can range from mild inconveniences to long-term financial damage. Among these problems below are some of the most common. Data theft and identity fraud. First, and perhaps most importantly, spyware could steal personal information that can be used for identity theft. If malicious software has access to every piece of information on your computer, it can harvest more than enough information to imitate your identity. Information used for this purpose includes browsing history, email accounts, and saved passwords for online banking, shopping, and social networks. Also, if you visited online banking sites, spyware can siphon your bank account information or credit card accounts and sell it to third parties, or use them directly. Computer damages. More commonly, you will face the damage spyware can do to your computer. Spyware can be poorly designed, leading to system-draining performance. The lack of performance optimization can take up an enormous amount of your computer's memory, processing power, and internet bandwidth. As a result, infected devices may run slowly and lag in between applications or while online. Worst cases include frequent system crashing or overheating your computer, causing permanent damage. Some spyware can even disable your internet security programs. Disruptions to your browsing experience. Spyware can also manipulate search engine results and deliver unwanted websites in your browser, which can lead to potentially harmful websites or fraudulent ones. It can also cause your homepage to change and can even alter some of your computer's settings. Pop-up advertisements are an equally frustrating issue that accompanies some types of spyware. Advertisements may appear even when offline, leading to inescapable annoyances. How to protect yourself from spyware. The best way to control spyware is by preventing it from getting on your computer in the first place. However, avoiding program downloads and email attachments isn't always an option. Sometimes even a trusted website can become compromised and infect your computer. As your first line of defense, seek out internet security solutions with reliable antivirus and anti-malware detection capabilities. Check that they have proactive protection as well. If your computer is already infected, many security providers offer spyware removal utilities to assist in identifying and removing spyware. Be sure to use a reliable internet security provider when choosing a spyware removal tool. Certain utilities can be fraudulent and can be spyware themselves. There are several free antivirus solutions available. While a free antivirus trial is an excellent way to figure out which product is best for you, don't rely on a solution that promises unlimited protection at no cost. They will often lack certain features that are valuable for avoiding spyware schemes. Tools like a virtual encrypted keyboard for entering financial information or a strong anti-spam filter and cloud-based detection system help to eliminate risks. Beyond software, you can take a few other general tips across devices. 1. Be cautious about consenting to cookies. With GDPR compliance taking over the web, nearly every website asks for your permission to create cookies. Only accept cookies from trusted sites, and only if you truly desire the custom experience being offered. 2. Install an anti-tracking browser extension. Tools now exist that disconnect you from the constant online tracking that occurs nowadays. Even reputable tracking may be unwanted, so these tools help you and your data remain private across the web. 3. Keep all software updated with the latest security. Malware can get installed onto your system through operating systems and app vulnerabilities. Updates commonly include security patches to fix these natural weaknesses, so always update as soon as possible. 4. Remember that free software always has a cost. Sometimes free may mean a limited trial, but it can also mean the creator is profiting from your data. Always read the terms of use for the software license and only agree if you understand and accept. How to protect your phone from spyware, including Pegasus. 1. Stay away from unofficial app stores. Third-party app stores carry many malicious spyware apps. Avoid downloading from these stores to lower your risk of infection. 2. Only download trusted apps from official app publishers. Some spyware masks itself as companion services to other popular apps like Facebook and Gmail. Always read the publisher's name and verify if they are official or a third party. 3. Be reserved about giving permissions to apps. Some apps have no clear need for camera and microphone access or your location data. Decide whether your apps need these permissions to give you an ideal user experience. 4. Do not follow links in text messages. A popular bait method for mobile attackers is to include links in texts to their targets. You'll be safer by avoiding any links and manually entering URLs into the address bar after you've verified them to be safe. How to protect your computer from spyware. 1. Enable or download a pop-up blocker. Many browsers offer built-in blockers now, but you may want to set the filter on high to prevent anything from slipping in. 2. Limit runnable applications to a pre-approved allow list. You can control which applications run and what permissions they have. On your admin-level account, set these permissions to always ask you before running or making system modifications. 3. Avoid email links and attachments when possible. As another popular delivery method for malware, links and attachments can carry all kinds of malicious payloads. Even files from trusted senders can be malicious if their accounts have been hacked via phishing. Denial of service attacks and distributed denial of service attacks, DDoS. DDoS meaning, what is DDoS? Distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks, are a subclass of denial of service, or DOS attacks. A DDoS attack involves multiple connected online devices, collectively known as a botnet, which are used to overwhelm a target website with fake traffic. Unlike other kinds of cyber attacks, DDoS assaults don't attempt to breach your security perimeter. Rather, a DDoS attack aims to make your website and servers unavailable to legitimate users. DDoS can also be used as a smokescreen for other malicious activities and to take down security appliances, breaching the target's security perimeter. A successful distributed denial of service attack is a highly noticeable event impacting an entire online user base. This makes it a popular weapon of choice for hacktivists, cyber vandals, extortionists, and anyone else looking to make a point or champion a cause. DDoS attacks can come in short bursts or repeat assaults, but either way, the impact on a website or business can last for days, weeks, or even months as the organization tries to recover. This can make DDoS extremely destructive to any online organization. Amongst other things, DDoS attacks can lead to loss of revenues, erode customer trust, force businesses to spend fortunes in compensations, and cause long-term reputation damage. DOS versus DDoS. The differences between regular and distributed denial of service assaults are substantive. In a DOS attack, a perpetrator uses a single internet connection to either exploit a software vulnerability or flood a target with fake requests, usually in an attempt to exhaust server resources, for example RAM and CPU. On the other hand, distributed denial of service, or DDoS attacks, are launched from multiple connected devices that are distributed across the Internet. These multi-person, multi-device barrages are generally harder to deflect, mostly due to the sheer volume of devices involved. Unlike single-source DOS assaults, DDoS attacks tend to target the network infrastructure in an attempt to saturate it with huge volumes of traffic. DDoS attacks also differ in the manner of their execution. Broadly speaking, denial of service attacks are launched using home-brewed scripts or DOS tools, for example, low-orbit ion cannon, while DDoS attacks are launched from botnets, large clusters of connected devices, for example, cell phones, PCs, or routers, infected with malware that allows remote control by an attacker. DDoS botnets waging large-scale attacks. A botnet is a collection of hijacked connected devices used for cyber attacks that are controlled remotely from a command and control center, or CNC. These typically include personal computers, mobile phones, unsecured IoT devices, and even resources from public cloud services. Attackers use malware and other techniques to compromise a device, turning it into a zombie in the attacker's botnet. Botnets enable attackers to carry out DDoS attacks by harnessing the power of many machines and obscuring the source of the traffic. Since traffic is distributed, it is difficult for security tools and teams to detect that a DDoS attack is occurring until it is too late. Types of DDoS attacks. DOS attacks can be divided into two general categories: application layer attacks and network layer attacks. Each of these types of DDoS attacks define certain parameters and behaviors used during the attack, as well as the target of the attack. 1. Application layer attacks, also known as Layer 7 attacks, can be either DOS or DDoS threats that seek to overload a server by sending a large number of requests requiring resource-intensive handling and processing. Among other attack vectors, this category includes HTTP floods, slow attacks, for example, Slow Loris or Rudy, and DNS query flood attacks. Gaming website hit with massive DNS flood, peaking at over 25 million packets per second. The size of application layer attacks is typically measured in requests per second, RPS, with no more than 50 to 100 RPS being required to cripple most mid-size websites. 2. Network layer attacks, also known as Layer 3 to 4 attacks, are almost always DDoS assaults set up to clog the pipelines connecting your network. Attack vectors in this category include UDP flood, SYN flood, NTP amplification, and DNS amplification attacks, and more. Any of these can be used to prevent access to your servers, while also causing severe operational damages, such as account suspension and massive overage charges. DDoS attacks are almost always high-traffic events, commonly measured in gigabits per second, GBPS, or packets per second, PPS. The largest network layer assaults can exceed hundreds Gbps. However, 20 to 40 Gbps are enough to completely shut down most network infrastructures. Reasons for DDoSing. Attacker motivations. DDoSing describes the act of carrying out a DDoS attack. Denial of service attacks are launched by individuals, businesses, and even nation-states, each with their own motivation. Hacktivism. Hacktivists use DOS attacks to express their criticism of everything, from governments and politicians, including big business, and current events. If hacktivists disagree with you, your site is going to go down, also known as Tango Down. Less technically savvy than other types of attackers, hacktivists tend to use pre-made tools to wage assaults against their targets. Anonymous is perhaps one of the best-known hacktivist groups. They're responsible for the cyber attack in February 2015 against ISIS, followed by the latter's terrorist attack against the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo, as well as the attack against the Brazilian government and World Cup sponsors in June 2014. Typical assault method of hacktivists: DOS and DDoS. Cyber vandalism. Cyber vandals are often referred to as script kiddies for their reliance on pre-made scripts and tools to cause grief to their fellow Internet citizens. These vandals are often bored teenagers looking for an adrenaline rush or seeking to vent their anger or frustration against an institution, for example, a school, or a person they feel has wronged them. Some are, of course, just looking for attention and the respect of their peers. Alongside pre-made tools and scripts, cyber vandals will also resort to using DDoS for hire services, also known as booters or stressors, which can be purchased online for as little as $19 a pop. Extortion. An increasingly popular motivation for DDoS attacks is extortion, meaning a cybercriminal demands money in exchange for stopping or not carrying out a crippling DDoS attack. Several prominent online software companies, including Meetup, Bitly, Vimeo, and Basecamp, have been on the receiving end of these DDoS notes, some going offline after refusing to succumb to the extortioner's threats. Like cyber vandalism, this type of attack is enabled by the existence of stressor and booter services. Typical assault method of extortionists: DDoS. Business competition. DDoS attacks are increasingly being used as a competitive business tool. Some of these assaults are designed to keep a competitor from participating in a significant event, for example, Cyber Monday, while others are launched with the goal of completely shutting down online businesses for months. One way or another, the idea is to cause disruption that will encourage your customers to flock to the competitor while also causing financial and reputational damage. An average cost of a DDoS attack to an organization can run at $40,000 per hour. Business-feud attacks are often well-funded and executed by professional hired guns who conduct early reconnaissance and use proprietary tools and resources to sustain extremely aggressive and persistent DDoS attacks. Typical assault method used by business competitors: DDoS. Cyber warfare. State-sponsored DDoS attacks are being used to silence government critics and internal opposition, as well as to disrupt critical financial, health, and infrastructure services in enemy countries. These attacks are backed by nation-states, meaning they are well-funded and orchestrated campaigns that are executed by tech-savvy professionals. Typical assault method employed as cyber warfare: DDoS. Personal rivalry. DOS attacks can be used to settle personal scores or to disrupt online competitions. Such assaults often occur in the context of multiplayer online games, where players launch DDoS barrages against one another and even against gaming servers to gain an edge or to avoid imminent defeat by flipping the table. Attacks against players are often DOS assaults executed with widely available malicious software. Conversely, attacks against gaming servers are likely to be DDoS assaults launched by stressors and booters. Typical assault method for personal rivals: DOS and DDoS. DDoS for hire, DDoSers, booters, and stressors. DDoS for hire providers offer to perform DDoS attacks on the behalf of others for payment. These threat actors are known by multiple names, including DDoSer, booters, and stressors. The wide availability of DDoS for hire makes it possible for almost anyone to wage large-scale attacks. One reason actors may go by a particular name is to appear as a legal service. For example, stressors typically claim to offer services for stress testing server resilience. However, these actors often do not verify the owner of the server they are testing to ensure tests are legitimate. In contrast, actors who refer to themselves as booters and DDoSers typically don't try to hide the illegal nature of their services. Example of booter advertised prices and capacities. How to stop DDoS attacks, DIY. You can't prevent DOS attacks. Cybercriminals are going to attack. Some are going to hit their targets, regardless of the defenses in place. However, there are a few preventative measures you can take on your own. Monitoring your traffic to look for abnormalities, including unexplained traffic spikes and visits from suspect IP addresses and geolocations. All of these could be signs of attackers performing dry runs to test your defenses before committing to a full-fledged attack. Recognizing these for what they are can help you prepare for the onslaught to follow. Keep an eye on social media, particularly Twitter, and public waste bins, for example pastebin.com, for threats, conversation, and boasts that may hint of an oncoming attack. Consider using third-party DDoS testing, for example pen testing, to simulate an attack against your IT infrastructure so you can be prepared when the moment of truth arrives. When you undertake this, test against a wide variety of attacks, not just those with which you are familiar. Create a response plan and a rapid response team, meaning a designated group of people whose job is to minimize the impact of an assault. When you plan, put in place procedures for your customer support and communication teams, not just for your IT professionals. To truly protect against modern DDoS attacks, you should use a DDoS mitigation solution. Solutions can be deployed on premises, but are more commonly provided as a service by third-party providers. We explain more about DDoS mitigation services in the following section. The first step in selecting a DDoS mitigation solution is to assess your risk. Important basic questions include: which infrastructure assets need protection? What are the soft spots or single points of failure? What is required to take them down? How and when will you know you're targeted? Will it be too late? What are the impacts, financial and otherwise, of an extended outage? Armed with this information, it's then time to prioritize your concerns, examining various DDoS mitigation options within the framework of your security budget. If you're running a commercial website or online applications, for example, SaaS applications, online banking, or e-commerce, you're probably going to want 24/7 always-on protection. A large law firm, on the other hand, may be more interested in protecting its infrastructure, including email servers, FTP servers, and back-office platforms, than its website. This type of business may opt for an on-demand solution. The second step is to choose the method of deployment. The most common and effective way to deploy on-demand DDoS protection for your core infrastructure services across an entire subnet is via Border Gateway Protocol, BGP routing. However, this will only work on demand, requiring you to manually activate the security solution in case of an attack. Consequently, if you're in need of always-on DDoS protection for your web application, you should use DNS redirection to reroute all website traffic, HTTP and HTTPS, through your DDoS protection provider's network, usually integrated with a content delivery network. The advantage of this solution is that most CDNs offer on-call scalability to absorb volumetric attacks, at the same time minimizing latency and accelerating content delivery. Ransomware attacks. Definition: ransomware is a type of malicious software or malware that threatens to publish or blocks access to data or a computer system, usually by encrypting it, until the victim pays a ransom fee to the attacker. In many cases, the ransom demand comes with a deadline. If the victim doesn't pay in time, the data is gone forever or the ransom increases. Ransomware attacks are all too common these days. Major companies in North America and Europe alike have fallen victim to it. Cybercriminals will attack any consumer or any business, and victims come from all industries. Several government agencies, including the FBI, advise against paying the ransom to keep from encouraging the ransomware cycle, as does the No More Ransom Project. Furthermore, half of the victims who pay the ransom are likely to suffer from repeat ransomware attacks, especially if it is not cleaned from the system. History of ransomware attacks. Ransomware can be traced back to 1989, when the AIDS virus was used to extort funds from recipients of the ransomware. Payments for that attack were made by mail to Panama, at which point a decryption key was also mailed back to the user. In 1996, ransomware was known as cryptoviral extortion, introduced by Mota Jung and Adam Young from Columbia University. This idea, born in academia, illustrated the progression, strength, and creation of modern cryptographic tools. Young and Jung presented the first cryptovirology attack at the 1996 IEEE Security and Privacy Conference. Their virus contained the attacker's public key and encrypted the victim's files. The malware then prompted the victim to send asymmetric ciphertext to the attacker to decipher and return the decryption key for a fee. Attackers have grown creative over the years by requiring payments that are nearly impossible to trace, which helps cybercriminals remain anonymous. For example, notorious mobile ransomware Fusob requires victims to pay using Apple iTunes gift cards instead of normal currencies like dollars. Ransomware attacks began to soar in popularity with the growth of cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency that uses encryption techniques to verify and secure transactions and control the creation of new units. Beyond Bitcoin, there are other popular cryptocurrencies that attackers prompt victims to use, such as Ethereum, Litecoin, and Ripple. Ransomware has attacked organizations in nearly every vertical, with one of the most famous viruses being the attack on Presbyterian Memorial Hospital. This attack highlighted the potential damage and risks of ransomware. Labs, pharmacies, and emergency rooms were hit. Social engineering attackers have become more innovative over time. The Guardian wrote about a situation where new ransomware victims were asked to have 2 other users install the link and pay a ransom in order to have their files decrypted. Examples of ransomware. By learning about the major ransomware attacks below, organizations will gain a solid foundation of the tactics, exploits, and characteristics of most ransomware attacks. While there continues to be variations in the code, targets, and functions of ransomware, the innovation in ransomware attacks are typically incremental. WannaCry. A powerful Microsoft exploit was leveraged to create a worldwide ransomware worm that infected over 250,000 systems before a kill switch was tripped to stop its spread. CryptoLocker. This was one of the first of the current generations of ransomware that required cryptocurrency for payment, Bitcoin, and encrypted a user's hard drive and attached network drives. CryptoLocker was spread via an email with an attachment that claimed to be FedEx and UPS tracking notifications. A decryption tool was released for this in 2014, but various reports suggest that upwards of $27 million was extorted by CryptoLocker. NotPetya. Considered one of the most damaging ransomware attacks, NotPetya leveraged tactics from its namesake, Petya, such as infecting and encrypting the master boot record of a Microsoft Windows-based system. NotPetya leveraged the same vulnerability from WannaCry to spread rapidly, demanding payment in Bitcoin to undo the changes. It has been classified by some as a wiper, since NotPetya cannot undo its changes to the master boot record and renders the target system unrecoverable. Bad Rabbit. Considered a cousin of NotPetya and using similar code and exploits to spread, Bad Rabbit was a visible ransomware that appeared to target Russia and Ukraine, mostly impacting media companies there. Unlike NotPetya, Bad Rabbit did allow for decryption if the ransom was paid. Most cases indicate that it was spread via a fake Flash player update that can impact users via a drive-by attack. Revil. Revil is authored by a group of financially motivated attackers. It exfiltrates data before it encrypts it so that targeted victims can be blackmailed into paying if they choose not to send the ransom. The attack stemmed from compromised IT management software used to patch Windows and Mac infrastructure. Attackers compromised the Kaseya software used to inject the Revil ransomware onto corporate systems. Ryuk. Ryuk is a manually distributed ransomware application mainly used in spear phishing. Targets are carefully chosen using reconnaissance. Email messages are sent to chosen victims, and all files hosted on the infected system are then encrypted. How ransomware works. Ransomware is a type of malware designed to extort money from its victims, who are blocked or prevented from accessing data on their systems. The two most prevalent types of ransomware are encryptors and screen lockers. Encryptors, as the name implies, encrypt data on a system, making the content useless without the decryption key. Screen lockers, on the other hand, simply block access to the system with a lock screen, asserting that the system is encrypted. Victims are often notified on a lock screen, common on both encryptors and screen lockers, to purchase a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin to pay the ransom fee. Once the ransom is paid, customers receive the decryption key and may attempt to decrypt files. Decryption is not guaranteed, as multiple sources report varying degrees of success with decryption after paying ransoms. Sometimes, victims never receive the keys. Some attacks install malware on the computer system even after the ransom is paid and the data is released. While originally focused largely on personal computers, encrypting ransomware has increasingly targeted business users, as businesses will often pay more to unlock critical systems and resume daily operations than individuals. Enterprise ransomware infections or viruses usually start with a malicious email. An unsuspecting user opens the attachment or clicks on a URL that is malicious or has been compromised. At that point, a ransomware agent is installed and begins encrypting key files on the victim's PC and any attached file shares. After encrypting the data, the ransomware displays a message on the infected device. The message explains what has occurred and how to pay the attackers. If the victims pay, the ransomware promises they'll get a code to unlock their data. Who is at risk? Any device connected to the Internet is at risk of becoming the next ransomware victim. Ransomware scans a local device and any network-connected storage, which means that a vulnerable device also makes the local network a potential victim. If the local network is a business, the ransomware could encrypt important documents and system files that could halt services and productivity. If a device connects to the Internet, it should be updated with the latest software security patches, and it should have anti-malware installed that detects and stops ransomware. Outdated operating systems such as Windows XP that are no longer maintained are at a much higher risk. The business impact from ransomware. A business that falls victim to ransomware can lose thousands of dollars in productivity and data loss. Attackers with access to data will blackmail victims into paying the ransom by threatening to release data and expose the data breach, so organizations that do not pay fast enough could experience additional side effects, such as brand damage and litigation. Ransomware stops productivity, so the first step is containment. After containment, the organization can either restore from backups or pay the ransom. Law enforcement gets involved in investigations, but tracking ransomware authors requires research time that just delays recovery. Root cause analysis identifies the vulnerability, but any delays in recovery impacts productivity and business revenue. Why is ransomware spreading? With more people working from home, threat actors increased their use of phishing. Phishing is a primary starting point for ransomware infection. The phishing email targets employees, both low-privileged users and high-privileged users. Email is inexpensive and easy to use, so it makes a convenient way for attackers to spread ransomware. Documents are normally passed in email, so users think nothing of opening a file in an email attachment. The malicious macro runs, downloads ransomware to the local device, and then delivers its payload. The ease of spreading ransomware in email is why it's a common malware attack. Who are the malicious actors? Sophisticated attacks might use ransomware with authors who build their own versions. Variants use the code base from an existing ransomware version and alter just enough of the functions to change the payload and method of attack. Ransomware authors can customize their malware to perform any action and use a preferred encryption cipher. Attackers are not always authors. Some ransomware authors sell their software to others or lease it for use. Ransomware can be leased as Malware as a Service, MaaS, where customers authenticate into a dashboard and launch their own campaign. Therefore, attackers are not always coders and malware experts. There are also individuals who pay authors to lease their ransomware. Why you shouldn't pay ransomware. After ransomware encrypts files, it shows a screen to the user announcing files are encrypted and the amount of money that must be paid. Usually, the victim is given a specific amount of time to pay or the ransom increases. Attackers also threaten to expose businesses and announce that they were victims of ransomware publicly. The biggest risk of paying is never receiving the cipher keys to decrypt data. The organization is out the money and still doesn't have decryption keys. Most experts advise against paying the ransom to stop perpetuating the monetary benefits to attackers. But many organizations are left without a choice. Ransomware authors require cryptocurrency payments, so the money transfer cannot be reversed. Steps for responding to an attack. The payload from ransomware is immediate. The malware displays a message to the user with instructions for payment and information on what happened to files. It's important for administrators to react quickly because some ransomware attempts to spread to other locations on the network and find critical files in additional scans. You can take a few basic steps to properly respond to ransomware, but note that expert intervention is usually required for root cause analysis, cleanup, and investigations. Determine which systems are impacted. You must isolate systems so that they cannot affect the rest of the environment. This step is part of containment that will minimize damage to the environment. Disconnect systems and power them down if necessary. Ransomware spreads rapidly on the network, so any systems must be connected either by disabling network access or powering them down. Prioritize restoration of systems so that the most critical ones can be returned to normal faster. Usually, priority is based on productivity and revenue impact. Eradicate the threat from the network. Attackers might use backdoors, so eradication must be done by a trusted expert. The expert needs access to logs, so that a root cause analysis will identify the vulnerability and all systems impacted. Have a professional review the environment for potential security upgrades. It's common for a ransomware victim to be a target for a second attack. If the vulnerability is not found, it can be exploited again. New ransomware threats. Authors constantly change code into new variants to avoid detection. Administrators and anti-malware developers must keep up with these new methods so that detection of threats happens quickly before it can propagate across the network. Here are a few new threats. DLL sideloading. Malware attempts to hide from detection by using DLLs and services that look like legitimate functions. Web servers as targets. Malware on a shared hosting environment can affect all sites hosted on the server. Ransomware such as Ryuk targets hosted sites, mainly using phishing emails. Spear phishing is preferred over standard phishing. Instead of sending malware to thousands of targets, attackers perform reconnaissance on potential targets for their high-privileged network access. Ransomware as a Service, RAAS, lets users launch attacks without any cybersecurity knowledge. The introduction of RAS has led to an increase in ransomware attacks. A primary reason for the increase in threats using ransomware is remote work. The pandemic introduced a new way of working globally. An at-home workforce is much more vulnerable to threats. Home users do not have the enterprise-level cybersecurity necessary to protect from sophisticated attacks, and many of these users commingle their personal devices with work devices. Since ransomware scans the network for vulnerable devices, personal computers infected with malware can also infect network-connected business machines. Ransomware prevention and detection. Prevention for ransomware attacks typically involves setting up and testing backups, as well as applying ransomware protection and security tools. Security tools such as email protection gateways are the first line of defense, while endpoints are a secondary defense. Intrusion detection systems, or IDSs, are sometimes used to detect ransomware command and control to alert against a ransomware system calling out to a control server. User training is important, but user training is just one of several layers of defense to protect against ransomware, and it comes into play after the delivery of ransomware via an email phish. A fallback measure, in case other ransomware preventative defenses fail, is to stockpile Bitcoin. This is more prevalent where immediate harm could impact customers or users at the affected firm. Hospitals and the hospitality industry are at particular risk of ransomware, as patients' lives could be affected or people could be locked in or out of facilities. Before and after. How to prevent ransomware attacks. Defend your email against ransomware. Email phishing and spam are the main way that ransomware attacks are distributed. Secure email gateways with targeted attack protection are crucial for detecting and blocking malicious emails that deliver ransomware. These solutions protect against malicious attachments, malicious documents, and URLs in emails delivered to users' computers. Defend your mobile devices against ransomware. Mobile attack protection products, when used in conjunction with mobile device management or MDM tools, can analyze applications on users' devices and immediately alert users and IT to any applications that might compromise the environment. Defend your web surfing against ransomware. Secure web gateways can scan users' web surfing traffic to identify malicious web ads that might lead them to ransomware. Monitor your server, network, and backup key systems. Monitoring tools can detect unusual file access activities, viruses, network CNC traffic, and CPU loads, possibly in time to block ransomware from activating. Keeping a full image copy of crucial systems can reduce the risk of a crashed or encrypted machine, causing a crucial operational bottleneck. How to remove ransomware. Call federal and local law enforcement. Just as someone would call a federal agency for a kidnapping, organizations need to call the same bureau for ransomware. Their forensic technicians can ensure systems aren't compromised in other ways, gather information to better protect organizations going forward, and try to find the attackers. Ransomware recovery. Learn about anti-ransomware resources. No More Ransom Portal and Bleeping Computer have tips, suggestions, and even some descriptors for selected ransomware attacks. Restore data. If organizations have followed best practices and kept system backups, they can restore their systems and resume normal operations. Distributed Network Attacks, DDoS. What is a botnet? Premium cell charges and sending paid SMS. How to protect against all types of above attacks. Cyber scams. How to recognize and mitigate them. How to tell if you're infected with malware. Picture this. You start your computer and wait. And wait. And wait some more. When your desktop finally shows its face, things don't get any better. Your internet is sluggish, your programs are taking forever to load, and your cursor is dragging 20 seconds behind your mouse. You might have tried opening too many programs at once, or you might be infected. Sometimes a malware infection is plain as day. Other times, it's a silent killer. If you want to know whether or not your machine is sick, you first need to understand the symptoms. So let's take a look at the telltale signs. Blatant signs of infection. You've got ransomware. This one's the most obvious. Ransomware authors want to make it perfectly clear that you have a malware infection. That's how they make their money. If you've got ransomware, you'll get a pop-up that tells you your files have been encrypted and there's a deadline to pay a ransom in order to get them back. Browser redirects. You click on a link after doing a Google search on "My computer's acting strange." The link opens to a different page. You head back to your search results and try a different link. Same thing happens. Over and over, you're redirected to a different site from the one you're trying to reach. That, my friend, is a malware infection. Different homepage. Say you set up your homepage to be your favorite sports news site, but for some reason, yahoo.com keeps coming up. You also notice some new toolbars, rows of selectable icons below your browser address bar that you can't get rid of. You could either have a major cause of the forgets, or, more likely, you've got an infection. Bombarded with pop-ups. We're talking can't escape. Close one, another one opens. Or you're not even online, and you're getting pop-up messages on your system. Some sites admittedly have terrible ad experiences that feel like something nefarious is going on, but really isn't. Most of the time, if your screen is loaded with pop-ups, you're looking at an adware infection. Less obvious signs of infection. Computer running slow. Lots of things can contribute to a slow computer. You could be running too many programs at once. You may be running out of hard drive space, or there's not enough free memory. If none of those are true for you and your computer is still slow, it's possible you're infected. It could very well be mining cryptocurrencies without your knowledge. New unfamiliar icons on desktop. Maybe your nephew Timmy jumped on without your knowledge and downloaded a photo editing program so he could swap his face with his dog's face and share it on social media. Or perhaps you downloaded a legitimate piece of software and a potentially unwanted program, or pup, hitched a ride. If it's the latter, your computer could be weighed down by pups, which Malwarebytes and many other security companies can remove for you. Constant crashing. There are a couple of reasons why your applications or system might crash, including potential incompatibility between programs or software and hardware that needs updating. However, some forms of malware, such as rootkits, dig deep into Windows kernel and latch on, creating instability. Web browser freezes or is unresponsive. Slow internet could be just that. Check your Wi-Fi signal or your download speeds with your internet provider to be sure. But if everything checks out and your browser grinds to a halt, it could be a sign of an adware or ad fraud infection. Lots of bounced email. We've all mistakenly typed in the wrong email address and hit send, but if you're getting a suspiciously high number of bounces or emails that return to your box undelivered, something else is going on. First, your email address could have been hacked and is now being used to spam the crap out of your contacts list, or malware could be the culprit. How? An infected computer sends out emails using the addresses it found in your computer. If the to address doesn't work, the message bounces back to the from address, which is often yours. Unexpected prompts showing. Some types of malware use PowerShell commands or batch files to run additional malware or malicious scripts. Seeing the black command prompts and blue PowerShell screens flash by could be a sign of infection, although confusingly some legitimate programs use the same methods. Mobile infections. Battery life drains quickly. Oh yes, your cell phone is not immune to malware. If you notice your battery life draining quickly, it could be that you've got some hefty programs open, such as games or music streaming services. It could also be that your battery is on its last leg. Unfortunately, the third possibility is mobile malware. Unusually large bill. This one's pretty clear-cut. Pay close attention to your cell phone bill. Are you being charged for messages you didn't send? Is your data plan getting busted? Are you getting texts from your provider saying you owe money for something you didn't purchase? Mobile malware is to blame. You can protect against mobile threats using anti-malware software designed specifically for smartphones and tablets. For example, Malwarebytes for Android safeguards Android devices from malware, infected applications, and unauthorized surveillance. And Malwarebytes for iOS can block scam calls, text, and protect your web experience on Safari. Stealth infections. No sign at all. Is your computer running like a smooth criminal? No issues whatsoever? You might still be infected. Many forms of malware, including botnets, spyware, and others designed to steal your data, are nearly impossible to detect unless you run a scan. In fact, whether it's plainly obvious or there's no real sign of malware, you should be regularly scanning your computer with security programs like Malwarebytes. If malware is detected, follow these simple steps to clean your computer. Online safety. Staying safe online requires more than just avoiding websites that look untrustworthy. These days, you might be infected with malware by the advertisement banner showing on a legitimate website, or have your CPU gobbled up by crypto miners. To counter these kinds of threats, we at Malwarebytes tend to block entire advertiser networks to prevent our users from being a victim of malicious advertisements or malvertising. Or we might block domains that allow crypto mining to take place without consent. The purpose of this blog post is to explain exactly why you might see pop-ups from our website blocking function on a site you thought you trusted. Malicious sites versus sites used for malice. There are many reasons why certain websites are blocked, and we make it clear in our product notification pop-ups why we do so. We block and flag sites for being infected or for containing potentially malicious downloads, such as Driver Update Net, which was found to be spreading malware and potentially unwanted programs, or PUPs. We also block sites such as Glees.com and CoinHive.com for harboring phishing websites and engaging in malicious crypto mining activities, respectively. In some cases, website blocking isn't permanent. This happens when legitimate websites get compromised. Malwarebytes temporarily divert users away from affected domains until the entire site is completely cleaned up. In other cases, Malwarebytes merely blocks the bad ads shown on legitimate websites. When a huge Angler malvertising campaign hit big-name online publishers in 2016, Malwarebytes protected users by blocking the domains involved in the attack, consequently blocking malicious ads on the New York Times, the BBC, and Newsweek. More notably, we blocked all exploit attempts with our anti-exploit technology. Below is a showcase of examples of pop-up notifications in Malwarebytes for Windows. You'll see if you have our malicious website protection module enabled. ExploreAds.com is a legitimate ad network that is used in fraud and PUP campaigns. Malvertising. One of the main reasons why a legitimate site might be blocked is due to malvertising. Malvertisements are advertisements that look legitimate, but contain malicious code to infect systems, often without any user interaction required. Cybercriminals use malvertisements to spread their malware to a greater audience of users by submitting malicious ads to online advertising networks. Ad networks then tailor their ads for specific platforms, serving up ads relevant to previous searches and site display settings for PC or Mac operating systems. While this helps cybercriminals determine which type of malware to serve up in their malvertising campaigns, the ad networks are, in fact, usually not aware of the criminal's ill intent. After submitting and getting their non-malicious ad approved, these criminals then switch out the legitimate clean ad for the malicious one without the ad network's knowledge. The network fails to check modifications made to the advertisements and therefore allow the malvertisements to be shown on their customers' web pages. Furthermore, ad networks also quickly cycle through different advertisements with each view of the customer web page. The dynamic scrolling of ads makes it difficult not only to flag the existence of a malvertisement circulating on the network, but also identifying which advertisement is the culprit. So now that you know what malvertisements are, you may ask, why doesn't Malwarebytes website blocker just detect the URL of the malicious code rather than the whole ad network? Well, we do, but sometimes that is not enough. This is because malicious ads tend to change often to avoid detection and use different URLs in the operation of their attacks. We flag and block entire ad networks that are known to host malvertisements, intentionally or unintentionally, because of their failure to conduct regular quality assurance checks on the ads they are circulating. This, in combination with finding numerous malicious ads on their networks and spreading malware, forces us to block not only the malicious advertisements, but also the advertisements networks entirely. Examples of malicious ads. Malvertising is a big-time offender of multiple attacks on sites as prestigious as the New York Times and as lowbrow as porn and torrent sites. This attack doesn't discriminate. Here are a few other examples of malvertising in action. December 2015. Large number of adult sites distribute malware via ad expansion malvertising. Popular adult entertainment sites fell victim to a malicious ads served on the ad expansion network, allowing visitors to be compromised by a flash player exploit and other Trojanized payloads. February 2016. A look behind the Skype malvertising campaign. Skype and other top publishers were hit by a campaign pushing the exploit kit to install the Tesla Crypt ransomware. April 2017, malvertising on iOS pushes eyebrow-raising VPN app. Users of iOS were also found to be targets of rogue ads when they visited popular torrent sites, ensuing a scareware campaign that pushed a purportedly free VPN app called My Mobile Secure. As you can see, malvertising happens all the time, and while the effort from the community is to fight these attacks has advanced greatly over the last few years, the threat is far from gone. Crypto mining. The emergence and popularization of cryptocurrency mining, or crypto mining, has redefined how we block certain sites. While Malwarebytes normally looks for 1. Malicious sites harboring malware, pups, and phishing kits, and 2. Domains associated with malvertising attacks in order to block sites, we now also block many domains that mine for cryptocurrency. Why? While the intentions behind crypto mining may not be malicious, some site owners want to replace traditional advertising with crypto mining in order to create revenue. Using the CPU and GPU of website visitors without their knowledge is, in our opinion, malicious behavior. Visitors who have their GPU and CPU mined without their knowledge might experience dramatic lags, mega slowdowns of internet service, and fans working overtime to cool down hard-working processors. If mined enough, they may also see some increases in their electricity bills. While this is minor damage compared to having data stolen, it's still taking advantage of users without consent and disrupting their online experience. Worse, it could seriously disrupt business or infrastructure critical processes by overloading systems to the point where they become unresponsive and shut down, as Malwarebytes researcher Jerome Segura said in our State of Malicious Crypto Mining report. CoinHive.com, a service provider of cryptocurrency miners, was the first domain we blocked because the site owners who used this service weren't asking for users' permission to run the miners on their systems. Even as CoinHive amended their practices to include a request for user content, we blocked the legitimate program because it would often crank CPU resources up to 100, taking advantage of the full power of victim computers, which could result in a shorter shelf life for the processor itself. Examples of illegal crypto mining. Although crypto mining is fairly new, our researchers have already documented a number of incidents where miners were caught red-handed, gobbling up user resources without their knowledge. Below is a list of the latest. February 2018. New deepfakes forum goes mining with CoinHive. Those after the technology behind swapping faces of adult entertainers to celebrities of their choice, or friends they secretly admire, were prime targets of malicious crypto mining set up by an unknown admin of the then-minted Deepfakes forum after its exodus from Reddit. February 2018. Deepfakes fake app tool briefly includes CryptoMiner. A user-friendly version of a face-swapping software that can be used for a deepfake movie was found to contain code used to silently mine cryptocurrency. After its discovery, a clean version was made available. March 2018. Malicious crypto mining and their blacklist conundrum. Proponents of crypto mining have incorporated an evasion technique, which is normally seen in malware, to their miners to avoid getting detected and removed. What you would see. So now we've shown you the difference between a site that is explicitly malicious and one that is being used malicious purposes such as crypto mining or malvertising. Let's look at an example of our blocking process in action for the latter. How and when might you come across a website that would be blocked for malicious advertisements? First, if you have been using Malwarebytes for a while, then you might have seen a notice appear, like the one below, while you were surfing what you believe to be a legitimate website. If you were confused or frightened by the notice, don't worry. It doesn't necessarily mean that the website you are on is malicious. Rather, the advertisements inserted into the web page might have been. Take, for example, you navigate to your favorite website, coolstufffeed.com, to check out the latest news. When your page loads up, you see a notice from Malwarebytes for Windows informing you that it is blocking a potentially malicious website. You freak out and never visit coolstufffeed.com again. What happened here is that while you navigated to coolstufffeed.com, Malwarebytes blocked the advertisement provider used by coolstufffeed.com due to its association with malvertising. Malicious ads distributed by ad networks, knowingly or not, might include malicious code in pop-ups or advertisement banners that unleash exploit kits, which find vulnerabilities in people's computers and drop malware, all without a click from the user. That's why, when the banners attempt to load or pop-ups attempt to pop, we block them before they have a chance to cause any damage to your system. Back to our example, Malwarebytes detected the IP address of the ad network, which for our purposes we'll call Bad Ad Network, as being involved with the distribution of malicious ads. To better track how Bad Ad Network's involvement with your favorite website resulted in a block from Malwarebytes, let's review our example again, this time with more of the story. CoolStuffFeed.com hires Bad Ad Network to provide advertisements to its main site, likely unaware of the ad network's relationship with malvertising. Sites like CoolStuffFeed.com use ad networks to bring in possible revenue from every visit. Bad Ad Network is known to Malwarebytes to host malicious advertisements, so our website blocking feature stops their advertisement traffic from appearing in our users' browsers. You, the customer, will see a notice from us saying that CoolStuffFeed.com is a site detected as malicious. Malwarebytes flags sites affected by malvertising as such. In reality, we're blocking advertisements from Bad Ad Network that are trying to show up in your browser when you visit CoolStuffFeed.com. Am I protected? We are strict and prudent about when we decide to blacklist a certain website so that our users are protected without blocking their access to the Internet. That being said, our product's web protection capabilities will block sites being used for malicious purposes. If you are one of the many users of Malwarebytes for Windows, then you are likely already safe. To double-check if you are, simply right-click the Malwarebytes icon in your notification icon bar, opposite from your Start menu button, and see if web protection is on. If it is, you're good to go. If not, we highly recommend that you enable it to activate this feature. In addition, exploit protection helps to stop attacks when malvertising attempts to drop malware payloads via exploit kit. Malwarebytes for Mac doesn't have its own module for website blocking at the moment, so we advise our Apple users to download and install our Malwarebytes browser extension in beta for Chrome and Firefox, which they can download from the Google Play Store and the Firefox add-ons page, respectively. Malwarebytes for Android users can take full advantage of the Safe Browsing Scanner feature, which blocks phishing and malware-related URLs. This is disabled by default, but our app gives you the option to enable it the first time you run the program. If you completely miss this part and want to enable it, or if you want to double-check that you have it already enabled, go to Settings Accessibility. Then, under Services, Malwarebytes Safe Browsing Scanner. See if it's set to On. If not, tap it and swipe the slider to enable. Extra protection. Even if you do not use Malwarebytes and, therefore, are not receiving the benefit of our web blocking protection, there are other ways to keep you safe from sites being used for malicious purposes. One of these is to use ad blocking software for your browser. This type of app will ensure that no advertisements reach you, regardless of where they come from. This is a great way to not only fend off potential malvertising attacks, but also help you avoid clicking things like fake download buttons or special offers. These types of scams exist en masse and are generally delivered to the user through ads and pop-ups. Another means of defense is simply adopting a cautious, always suspicious approach to surfing the web. If an email is sent requesting you click on a link, hover over it to see if the URL is in fact what it says it is. And when in doubt, go directly to the website yourself instead of clicking on the link sent via email or text. If you're conducting a financial transaction online, always look for the green padlock to the left of the browser, as well as the HTTPS prefix. And when in doubt, remember, if an offer seems too good to be true, it's likely not legit. Now you see it, now you don't. Malicious advertisements, though no longer in high rotation, are still one of the most dangerous threats online, mainly because you can follow every step for safe online hygiene and still become infected. Crypto mining, like bad ads, can remain undetected by users until it's too late. The best defense is always to arm yourself with as much protection as you can. Updating Java or disabling Java in your browser, Flash, your browser, and operating system are all great ways to stay ahead of the curve. However, using anti-malware software with a complete suite of protection features can keep you well protected against malicious websites, so you can breathe easy knowing your online experience will be protected. If you'd like to know which domains and IP addresses Malwarebytes blocks, the Labs team is now maintaining a running list on our Threat Center page. Data privacy. What is data privacy? Is the Internet a threat to privacy? Data is worth money, which is a major reason that your online privacy is under threat. For instance, knowing your browsing habits or search history can deliver big profits to advertisers. If you've been searching for new apartments, your search history could tip an advertiser off to the fact that you're going to be moving home soon. Time to start serving you ads for moving services, furniture, DIY stores, and home insurance. While that's a legitimate use of your data, personal data is also worth money to criminals. Credit card details are openly sold on the dark web. If a hacker can manage to get unauthorized access to an airline's reservation system or an e-commerce site's customer database, they've hit the jackpot. Any information you put on the web might be used maliciously. Therefore, you must be careful about your online privacy. Let's look at why Internet privacy matters and how you can help protect your privacy online. What is Internet privacy and why does it matter? Privacy breaches on the Internet pose real dangers. For instance, your medical conditions could be shared without your consent, or your banking data could be made available to third parties. You might have your emails hacked. Your identity could be stolen. The risks are more far-reaching than most people realize because of what might happen to your data next. The development of big data means that your browsing history could be analyzed to come up with conclusions that you don't want to be drawn. For example, a woman buying items such as folic acid supplements and unscented moisturizers might not appreciate a marketing agency identifying her as pregnant and targeting her with pregnancy products. If she's living with mom and dad and hasn't told her partner, she might not be happy to see "Congratulations on your baby" marketing materials arrive in the mail. That's just one example of how Internet privacy issues go much further and deeper than just protecting your banking account details or your social media account. Whenever you visit a website or download an app, data is being stored about you, possibly without your consent and even without your knowledge. You likely want to know where that data goes and how it's used, or you could decide you want to avoid it being collected altogether. How to protect your privacy online. Communications. One way you can protect your online privacy is to ensure that your communications are secure. Whether you're searching the web, sending an email, or using a GPS app on your phone, you're exchanging data with a server, and you need to protect that data while it's in motion. One fundamental step in ensuring your online privacy and security is to make sure that your communications are secure. If you're at home, make sure your router is secured by a strong, hard-to-guess password. It's also a good idea to change your home network's username. Often, usernames include the name of your ISP or the router's manufacturer. This information could make a hacker's life easier. If you're using a home Wi-Fi network, use WPA authentication to ensure no one can piggyback off your network. Now that so many cafes, hotels, and public places have free Wi-Fi, it's tempting to log on wherever you are. But be careful, public Wi-Fi is a big security risk. If it doesn't include secure authentication, it's easy for you to log on, but it's equally easy to be targeted by a hacker. Don't use public Wi-Fi for banking transactions or other particularly sensitive Internet use. You might consider using a virtual private network or VPN. How does a VPN prevent hacking of your Wi-Fi signal? It sets up a private gateway between you and the Internet, encrypting your communications so that no one can see what you're doing. Even though you're using public Wi-Fi, a VPN gives you the same security you'd have on your network. If you're carrying out any sensitive transactions, make sure you're dealing with a secure browser using HTTPS and not just HTTP. A basic HTTP website can be hacked with a listening program that can log any information you're sharing. This could be your online banking username and password, for instance. The secure HTTPS protocol uses SSL/TSL to encrypt your communication. Put in non-technical language, it creates a digitally secured environment in which you and the browser can communicate without anyone overhearing you. It's like a secure handshake between you and the website. If you're using SSL, you'll see a padlock in your browser address bar, and the website name will begin with HTTPS, not just HTTP. Click on the padlock if you want to see details of the site certificate. Some online messaging services are easy to eavesdrop on. If you use Facebook, your messages aren't secure unless you use the secret conversation facility accessed through Messenger's main menu. This is only available if you're logged in on an iPhone or Android device, not a PC. WhatsApp and Viber, on the other hand, are encrypted end-to-end, so they're much safer to use. How to protect your privacy online. Don't be tracked. Even if your access is secure, Google or another internet entity could be tracking your web use, or your ISP could be tracking you. In fact, in many countries, your ISP is required to do so that search histories can be made available to law enforcement if needed. So, when you're thinking about protecting your privacy online, you should think about how to prevent being followed around the web. One way to stop Google and other organizations tracking your browser history is to use a private browsing mode. That's incognito mode if you're using Chrome, or private if you're using Firefox. If you're using a shared PC or using someone else's PC as a guest, using private browsing means your login credentials won't be stored on the computer, plus your friend won't end up getting targeted ads meant for you. You can also download browser extensions that will prevent you from being tracked by the use of cookies, which will stop sites loading intrusive targeted ads. Be careful that you only use extensions from reputable organizations. Hackers have been known to create malicious software masquerading as security-enhancing apps and extensions. Your search history might still be held in the Google server, though. Understanding your search history and using it to show you personalized ads is one way Google makes its money. If you're not happy with this and want to tighten up your online privacy settings, then try using another search engine. However, your ISP can still see your activity. If you'd prefer that not to happen, then this is another time you might want to use a VPN. Does a VPN prevent hacking your communications? Yes. Does a VPN also stop your ISP from seeing what you do? Yes. It uses the same method for both. Your communications are encrypted, and your ISP doesn't have the encryption key. All it can see is a stream of gibberish. Plus, you can't be tracked by web cookies or other tracking methods because the VPN will also mask your IP address. Therefore, no one can see where your communications are coming from. Finally, remember to log off your accounts when you're not using them. Just closing the tab or even the browser isn't enough. Facebook, for instance, tracks users even when they don't have Facebook open in their browsers. To stop it tracking where you go and what you do, you need to log out. And it goes without saying that if you're logged onto a bank or a brokerage account, you should log off properly. How to protect your privacy online. Choosing what you put online. You don't have to put everything online. There may be aspects of your life that you don't want everyone to know, for entirely innocent reasons. For example, some people find their middle names embarrassing, or just have particular leisure interests they don't want to share on their workplace. You can protect your privacy online by thinking carefully about what you want to put online and who you'd like to be able to see it. It's worth thinking about whether the personal information you put on social media has any security ramifications. Internet security issues are also real-world security issues. For instance, letting people know you're having a great time at Disneyland might be quite natural, but it's information a burglar would be very happy to find out. If bank security questions include your mother's maiden name, first car, or your pet's name, keep those bits of information off your social media links. Look carefully at what information different social media platforms make available automatically, such as your location or who you are with. Many people don't realize the About Me fields contain a lot of information criminals need for successful identity theft, or they could be used for a social engineering exploit. Have you made your date of birth public so your friends know when your birthday is? That's another piece of information your bank and other sensitive accounts often use as an identifier. Explore the privacy settings of your social media accounts to control what others can see on your profile. If you use LinkedIn, you might not realize its activity section lets everyone see what you've been doing. That includes letting your employer see that you've been researching and following a couple of other companies. If you're looking for a job elsewhere, it's no longer a secret anymore. Uncheck the activity setting if you don't want everything you do on LinkedIn to be public. Many savvy Facebook users now limit their posts to friends only. However, if you change a post to public, perhaps because you've shared a link to an election campaign that you want your friends to be able to share, that permission might now be applied to all your future posts. Check that friends only is still your default. While we're talking about friends, are you sure you know everyone who's a Facebook friend? Should you still be friends with that person you met on vacation 5 years ago but haven't seen or heard from since? You can change your Facebook settings to protect yourself from hackers sending fake friend requests. Restrict friend requests to friends of friends to reduce your chances of being targeted. You might also not want your email address and phone number to be available to the public via your social media profiles. Restrict your contact details to friends only, or even make them completely private. At the same time, you might want to turn off search engine indexing. That means if someone does a Google search on your name, they won't be able to see all your Facebook posts. There's no privacy without security. Online privacy and security go hand in hand. We've already talked about how you can protect your communications with the Internet, but you also need to be able to protect the devices that you use for access, whether those are laptops, PCs, smartphones, or tablets. Here are some good tips for how to ensure your devices are secure. Install antivirus and anti-malware software. Anti-hacker software will ensure that your devices are secured against common threats, such as keyloggers, ransomware, and Trojans. Ensure you regularly update your operating system and other software, particularly when security patches are issued. Hackers often use vulnerabilities in outdated software as a way to break in. Don't give them the opportunity. Note, if you're using an operating system that's no longer supported, like Windows 7, whose support ended in January 2020, you ought to replace it. It's a sitting target for hackers. Be careful what you click on. Hackers often go phishing by sending fake emails that purport to be from your bank or from eBay, but go to a different site to steal your login credentials. Read the email address carefully. View the page source and hover your mouse over the links to see where they go. Other phishing attempts aim to get you to click on a link to a photo or news story, but load malware on your device when you do so. Make sure you protect your smartphone. Use the screen lock and PIN to protect it from unauthorized access. Don't jailbreak or root it. That can give hackers a way to overwrite your settings and install their own malicious software. It's a good idea to download an app that can allow you to delete all the data on your phone remotely. If your phone is stolen, you can delete your information easily. When you download apps, check what permissions they require. An app that requires access to your camera, microphone, location services, calendar, contacts, and social media accounts is a potential threat to your online privacy. Famously, Pokemon Go demanded permissions that gave it, in effect, the right to see and modify pretty much everything in your Google account except the password. This problem was quickly fixed with an update limiting the permissions required. Delete data, programs, and accounts that you don't use anymore. The more programs or apps you have running, the greater the chance that one of them could be compromised. Use strong passwords to secure your device's internet access and accounts. The best password managers will even create a totally randomized, ultra-strong password for each of your accounts. But whatever you do, don't lose the master password for your password manager. Changing your passwords every 6 months or so can also help reduce the chances of your accounts being hacked. Protect your online privacy and security by using two-factor authentication as much as you can. This allows you to enhance your security by demanding a second form of ID verification besides your passwords, such as an SMS code sent to your phone, a fingerprint, or a security dongle or fob that you can plug in via USB. Monitor your privacy for any breaches. You may have done a good job protecting your internet privacy, but the company responsible for looking after your privacy at the other end also needs to do its job. And sometimes security is breached and customers' personal data gets out or gets destroyed. Although companies will generally have crisis management plans enabling them to run a customer communications campaign and set things right if there's a breach, there are several things you can do to keep yourself well protected. First, make sure that you monitor your financial accounts regularly. Note any unexpected transactions or withdrawals and question them. They may be innocent, a direct debit that's been processed a month late, for instance, but they might also reveal that your account has been compromised. Check your credit reports too. If your details have been used for the purpose of identity theft, your credit report will show if anyone has been trying to apply for credit in your name. This won't cost you a penny if you're smart, since each of the 3 credit agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, must give you one free report every 12 months. The moment you hear of a data breach that might affect you, change the password on that account. You might want to change the passwords on other accounts too, particularly if they're similar to the password used on the compromised account. Change any answers to your security questions, even if you must fabricate a new maiden name for your mother and a new name for your first pet. Or use a secure password manager, which helps to keep your passwords in one place, as well as protect them. Don't respond to emails from a company saying there's been a breach and asking you to use the link in the email to change your credentials or to phone a number. These could be phishing attempts. Instead, use the company's own website or phone a number you already have for the company to ascertain whether there actually has been a breach. What are password managers and why to use them? What is a password manager? A password manager is a program that allows you to generate and store all your passwords in a safe location. Most of them let you also keep credit card information as well as secure notes. For even more security and convenience, password managers also support using biometric data, fingerprint or face, instead of your master password for even more security and convenience. You can also share selected information with your family and friends without copy-pasting it into an email or instant message. And so, instead of memorizing all the login information you use for each site, you only have to remember one master password when using a password manager. And thanks to the autosave and autofill features, you'll be able to connect to all your accounts easily. How do password managers work? Most people hate to register accounts, much less to create passwords. That might be the reason why they reuse them several times when creating accounts. Although it solves the problem at hand, registration, it leaves a gap in your security which could one day explode in your face. However, it's the year 2022, and there are solutions. One of them could be password managers. With them, you could create complex passwords and store them. Here's how the password managers work and how you can use them to make yourself safer on the web. There are multiple ways to categorize password managers. However, this time we want to present 3 technologies and explain how they work. We must also point out that some providers offer multiple methods to save your data. Most of them will require you to use a master password that protects your vault. Why use a password manager? 1. Password generators. You don't need to spend 15 minutes pondering on the things that you like to come up with a password. Several password managers will allow you to generate a safe password with varying complexity. Not only this saves you time, but it also comes up with better passwords. 2. It makes the process easier. Password managers are not only one of the safest ways to store passwords, but a reliable password manager tool will allow you to administrate all your logins from one application. It's a lifesaver for those using a multitude of websites and platforms. 3. No more typing. Most password managers have a built-in feature that allows you to autofill passwords and other recurring information. It extends to your payment information or addresses. It saves you the hassle of needing to remember every single one of your passwords. 4. Secure password sharing. Many people are sharing accounts with their friends and family. Netflix even allows different users that all log in with the same password. However, the best way to share them isn't to paste it into the chat. That's the definition of asking for trouble. The password manager then allows users to securely share passwords with other users. 5. Cross-platform support. As applications, password managers are not at all complicated and do not require a lot of resources. That means it's much easier to develop them for a variety of platforms like web browsers or smartphone apps. For the end user, this means an ability to get the same password vault no matter what's your preferred method of connection. 6. Multi-factor authentication. Even if a hacker would install a keylogger and get your master password, this wouldn't mean the end of the world if you still have two-factor authentication enabled. The password would be useless without it, so you'd still be safe and the vault would stay locked. Cloud security. How to secure your information in the cloud. More people and businesses now use the cloud in some form, sometimes without even realizing they are doing so. Unfortunately, being unaware of using the service also means that people aren't always as protected as they should be, and it is becoming increasingly important to know how to secure your information on the cloud. What is the cloud? Cloud basically means a technological solution you're subscribing to online. That covers an incredibly diverse range of things. For example, online data storage like Dropbox, marketing automation and tracking like Marketo, and customer relationship management like Salesforce.com. Cloud applications are designed to be very quick to deploy and easy to manage, and as a result, the chances are that your department is already using some kind of cloud service. The challenge here is that you don't know how good the security of the solution you're buying may be. That can be a big problem if any corporate information is being handled by the service. For example, if you use an online data storage service like Dropbox, SugarSync, or Google Drive, and that service gets compromised by an attacker, that attacker could get access to any information you have stored on that site. Likewise, if you use an online human resources tool like Tribe HR, Bamboo HR, or iEmployee, and it gets compromised, your employee's personally identifiable information, PII, could be at risk. Not only is this a problem for those directly affected, but the company as a whole is impacted. It is a legal requirement that PII for both employees and customers be protected, so any incident exposing it could result in fines or other penalties. And there are also reputational implications and the loss of trust. Other types of corporate data, such as any intellectual property, are also valuable and need to be protected to defend the way we do business. How can you protect yourself? Don't store information online without permission. When you use a cloud solution, you may find that you start putting data in there as a matter of course. This is how you get value out of the solution. But have you considered what kind of data you're storing there, or how the vendor is storing and protecting that data? We have a responsibility to keep that data safe, but a third-party vendor may not feel they share that responsibility. Check with IT, and we'll tell you whether it's safe to store information online. Don't use personal cloud storage for work. It's very tempting. You use an online storage service for your media and documents at home. You already have an account set up, and you need to be able to access company information so you can work wherever you are. Using your personal account seems like an obvious solution, but it isn't. Ask IT for a solution and we will suggest some company-approved approaches and get you up and running. Don't share permissions for company files. It's a standard practice to restrict who can access certain types of information in the company based on role. This helps keep the information safe. In the same way, you should check with a manager or IT before sharing access to files that are stored in the cloud. Don't share passwords and other access credentials. It's very common for teams to share credentials for cloud services. This is an inherently insecure behavior and can encourage other equally insecure behavior, such as emailing credentials, writing them down, or using very weak, easy-to-guess passwords. All of these activities increase the risk associated with using cloud services and should be avoided. Use a cloud service that encrypts. The first step in the defense against identity thieves is using a cloud service that encrypts your files, both in the cloud and on your computer. Encryption ensures service providers and their service administrators, as well as third parties, do not have access to your private information. Read the user agreements. Never sign up for cloud service without reading the user agreement completely. It includes vital information that details how the service protects your information and whether you give permission for them to use or sell your information in any way by signing up. Never sign up for anything without a full understanding of what every clause in the agreement means. Anytime your service provider updates its privacy policies, it will notify you via email, text, or an alert when you log in. Always read these notifications to ensure changes do not negatively affect your information. Set up your privacy settings. As soon as you do sign up for a cloud service provider, configure your privacy settings to ensure you are not sharing your private information via the apps you connect to your service provider. You should also determine how long the service stores your data and which types of information it can pull from your device or apps. After the initial setup of your privacy settings, check and reconfigure every few weeks to ensure they remain safe. Use strong passwords. A strong password is essential for every account you have, but especially when it comes to protecting accounts housing private information. More than 75% of attacks are due to weak passwords, which means you must be diligent when creating yours. Never use one shorter than 8 characters and create one with 15 characters or more for the best protection. Avoid using identifying information such as your name, birthday, company name, or the names of people or pets you are close to. Never create a password solely with letters. Ensure you use both capital and lowercase letters as well as numbers and symbols. Finally, update your passwords regularly and avoid using the same one for multiple accounts. Use two-factor authentication. When provided with the option, always use two-factor authentication. This means anyone who signs into your account will need information in addition to your password. Common methods of authentication include answering a secret question, providing a personal PIN number, or inputting a code that the cloud provider emails or texts to you. You may also opt to download an authenticator app. Not all accounts will automatically ask you to set up a secondary identifier, so be sure to check your settings to see if the option is available. Don't share personal information. Some of your personal information may seem innocuous, but if it falls into the wrong hands, it could leave your identity unprotected. Never publicly provide your birth date or your mother's maiden name, which are often asked as questions to verify your identity. You should also avoid providing people you don't know or trust with information such as the name of the street you grew up on or the name of your first pet. Regardless of how well you trust someone, never give them the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. Some providers allow you to choose your own questions to answer for verification. If you have the option, use questions and answers that you can easily remember, but that most people wouldn't easily be able to learn about you, such as an embarrassing childhood nickname or where you went on your first date. Don't store sensitive information. Avoid storing sensitive information on the cloud. In addition to the obvious, such as your Social Security number, copies of your IDs, or important financial statements, even old ones, consider what other information someone could get their hands on. Never keep racy pictures or intimate interactions with partners in the cloud, and if you are sensitive about items such as diet progress pictures, avoid posting those as well. Use a strong anti-malware program. Because the cloud transfers information over the Internet, it is vital to have strong antivirus and anti-malware protection on your laptop, smartphone, tablet, or any other cloud-using device. These programs help to block suspicious URLs and downloads. Some also offer features such as remote wipe, backups, and device location services. Norton Security is a robust solution for all your digital safety needs. Install updates to your operating system. It may be tempting to ignore the notifications alerting you to updates for your operating system, but these updates are often vital for ensuring the protection of your computer and information. They often are to fix bugs found in the system that leave you at risk. By ignoring them due to their sometimes inconvenient timing, you set yourself up for even larger inconveniences. Ensure you install all updates as soon as possible. Use public Wi-Fi sparingly. While you can set creative passwords, use firewalls, and provide antivirus and anti-malware programs when you use your home's wireless internet connection, you cannot guarantee that a public connection is safe. When you do use public Wi-Fi, verify the connection through the business. Avoid using internet hotspots if you cannot verify their source. Cyber thieves use these open Wi-Fi connections to steal information when you connect to the spot. They don't even have to be technologically advanced to do so. All it takes is a small device and the ability to sit within 100 feet of you when you use the connection. To further protect your information, keep your Wi-Fi feature turned off until you are ready to log in to a verified connection. Always use a virtual private network if viewing sensitive information in public, or use Norton Secure VPN that protects your data when you use public Wi-Fi. Despite knowing how to secure your information on the cloud, sometimes cyber thieves find their way into your private information. If you suspect your account has been compromised, immediately change your passwords and verification information and alert the provider. By describing the suspicious behavior to the provider, you can help them prevent future attacks. Secure your browser. The web browser is an old piece of software with lineages tracing back to the 1990s. It's your portal to the cloud, your interface with Salesforce, AWS, Azure, and countless other cloud services. It's also one of the most insecure apps you'll ever use, with a whole manner of malicious attacks targeting the browser since Microsoft, Apple, and various Linux vendors have effectively secured their respective operating systems. Web browsers are not set up in the most secure means with the default configuration. They tend to be configured for maximum performance, and the performance and security don't always go together. This is true of both preloaded browsers with the computer and the ones you may download. Here are some setting suggestions, including how to enable or disable them in the three major browsers: Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, and Mozilla Firefox. 1. Get security browser extensions. We're going to start off contradicting ourselves, as suggestions 1 and 2 directly contradict each other. The call is yours to make. Browser extensions or add-ons are small plug-in applications to add functionality to your browser. All three have hundreds, if not thousands, of extensions for a variety of actions. Among them are security and privacy extensions to protect your online privacy and security. They range from blocking access to known malicious websites to enabling HTTPS for everything to blocking cookies and IP addresses. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, or EFF, a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting privacy and security, recommends HTTPS everywhere, in part because it created it. HTTPS everywhere lives up to its name by forcing the browser to use HTTPS instead of the default unsecured HTTP. The EFF also makes Privacy Badger, which learns about and blocks secret trackers that track you across the web and even on different devices as you use your browser. It can be set to block all trackers, including cookies. Finally, the EFF makes and promotes uBlock Origin, an ad and tracking blocker. It stops ads on a page from even loading. To access the plugins or extensions library of your browser, in Chrome, select the menu from the upper right, the three dots. Go down to the More Tools submenu and select Extensions. In Firefox, select the menu from the upper right, three lines, and go down to Add-ons. You'll be connected to the extension store. In Edge, select the menu from the upper right, three dots. Go down to the Extensions option. You will see a link that says Get Extensions from Microsoft Store. 2. Disable extensions. Herein lies the contrarian advice. While many extensions come from reputable companies or developers and perform a useful function, some are written by unscrupulous developers and are designed to spy on you or outright hijack your web browser. Google recently removed dozens of extensions from its stores involved in information theft. An extension can also be exploited by malware, and not just a poorly written one. JavaScript has many legitimate uses, but a whole lot of exploits too. Universal banning of extensions isn't feasible. Some of your users will need extensions, and there are plenty of good ones. There are more than 25 for Salesforce alone. But if you have some users who need maximum protection, a total ban is possible. In Chrome, right-click the icon, go to Properties section, and add Disable Extensions to the target window. In Firefox, like Chrome, add Safe Mode at the end of the link in the target window. This disables everything. In Edge, like Chrome, add -ext off, that's EXTOFF, to the target window. 3. Disable saved passwords. All of the web browsers offer some kind of built-in password manager to save your usernames and passwords. Given how many accounts we all have, it's an obvious feature. But it also represents a danger, especially if the laptop is lost or stolen. Stolen credentials on your PC can be stolen by malicious software because login and password information is not that well protected. That's why there are so many password managers out there. In Chrome, open Settings, select Passwords, and uncheck Offer to Save Passwords and Auto Sign In. In Firefox, click the Menu button, then select Preferences. Select Privacy and Security on the left pane. Scroll down to Logins and Passwords and select the Saved Logins button. In Microsoft Edge, select Settings and select Passwords and Autofill, then use the toggle to turn off all three functions. 4. Use a strong antivirus. This should be obvious, but all too often it isn't. The top antivirus products out there not only have a constantly updated database of known malware, but also a database of known dangerous or malicious sites that try to inject malware into a visitor's computers, and they will stop the page from even loading. Browser protection should be a mandatory checkmark for evaluating an antivirus product. 5. Disable autofill. Autofill is a feature that automatically fills out forms on web pages with your previously saved user information. It detects common fields like name, email address, physical address, and phone number. While it is convenient and time-saving to autofill all your contact information without having to retype it, there are very real risks. One developer has even published a simple phishing example on GitHub to show how easily your personal information can be exploited. In Chrome, click Menu, then Settings, and select Autofill. Go into the Addresses and More section and toggle the setting to Off. In Firefox, click Menu, Options, then Privacy and Security. Uncheck the box Forms and Autofill. In Edge, click Menu, Settings, and Profiles, then select Addresses and More. Turn it off from there. 6. Use a sandbox. A sandbox is an application that blocks software applications from accessing the hard disk. The entire app only exists in the memory space occupied by the sandbox, and when the sandbox is closed, the app is wiped from memory without ever touching the disk. Some of these tools are simply virtual machines, but they have the same effect of blocking disk writes. You have several choices for sandboxing or virtualization software: VirtualBox, Sandboxy, QEMU, VMware Workstation Pro, and Parallels Desktop. 7. Manage browser cookies. Browser cookies are a small piece of data a website stores on your web browser when you visit that website, so it can remember you and your interactions. Cookies by themselves are not bad, but can become a problem if you get infected with malware, and malware steals cookie information. Cookie tracking can be reduced, but not completely prevented, and because some websites need it to function properly, you may not and should not disable it entirely. But if you want to disable cookies completely, in Chrome, click Menu, then Settings, then Advanced at the bottom of the page. Under Privacy and Security, click Site Settings, then Cookies. Next to Blocked, turn on the switch. In Firefox, go to Tools in the menu bar and click Options. In Options, under Enhanced Tracking Protection, select Custom, and in the Cookies pull-down menu, you can block all cookies. In Edge, click on Menu, then Settings, then Site Permissions. Select Off for Allow sites to save and read cookie data, and turn on Block third-party cookies. You also have the option of deleting certain cookies or blocking specific sites from these option windows. 8. Update your browser. Or don't. Browser makers are always pushing out updates, but to make sure you get it, you should do a manual check. In all three browsers, go into their menu and select Help or About. That forces a version check and then asks for a restart. Caveat emptor. A browser update is usually an upgrade that comes with new or improved features, bug fixes, and security patches. But the two most recent Firefox upgrades, versions 74 and 75, have been awful, introducing serious bugs and breaking features that previously worked, so it can't hurt to wait before upgrading to see if there are problems. 9. Use a 64-bit web browser. 64-bit programs have greater inherent protection against malware attacks because of something called address space layout randomization, ASLR. ASLR is a memory protection process to protect against buffer overflow attacks by randomizing the memory location where system executables are loaded into memory. All three browsers now default to the 64-bit version, but it can't hurt to double-check. Go into the menu and select Help or About, and the version number and 32 or 64-bit info will be displayed. 10. Consider alternatives to the big three. When you think browser, the automatic responses that come to mind are Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari for Mac users. But there are many more, owing to open-source browser engines. The Brave browser is built on top of Chromium, an open-source version of the Chrome browser, but does none of the online activity collection Google engages in. And rather than rely on third-party privacy extensions, it does its own blocking of third-party and advertising cookies and uses HTTPS for all connections. The Tor browser was designed to provide secure access to the Tor anonymity network, and as such it is heavily aimed at privacy and security. It is based on Firefox, but with additional security features, such as built-in HTTPS everywhere and no script, which disables all scripts by default, plugins. It also blocks other browser plugins such as Flash, Real Player, and QuickTime, and is always in private browsing mode, so it has tracking protection, no browsing history, no saved passwords, no search history, and no cookies or cached web content. The Vivaldi browser is derived from the Chromium open-source project, but one key feature is it removes all of Google's usage tracking. It makes its money through other means than ad tracking. It has seamless syncing between the desktop and mobile versions, has an integrated notes app for writing down research as you are browsing, and in one of its most unique features, it lets you screenshot an entire web page on a smaller screen, even if the contents of the page scroll down off the screen. The Opera browser makes its name for being lightweight and easy on resources, but it also has a built-in ad blocker, uses Chrome extensions, has a battery saver mode for laptops that can reduce battery use by up to 50%, and has a built-in VPN, something the competition does not do. Mobile security. Cyber attacks aren't exclusive to your computer. Your smartphone and your tablet are vulnerable too. In fact, cybercriminals see them as the next frontier. Check out these articles to learn about the latest in mobile cybercrime. Do mobile devices get malware? Malware criminals love the mobile market. After all, smartphones are sophisticated, complex handheld computers. They also offer an entrance into a treasure trove of personal information, financial details, and all manner of valuable data for those seeking to make a dishonest dollar. Unfortunately, this has spawned an exponentially increasing number of malicious attempts to take advantage of smartphone vulnerabilities. From adware, Trojans, spyware, worms, and ransomware, malware can find its way onto your phone in several ways. Clicking on a dodgy link or downloading an unreliable app are some obvious culprits, but you can also get infected through emails, texts, and even your Bluetooth connection. Moreover, malware such as worms can spread from one infected phone to another without any interaction from the user. In fact, it's a huge market. Read that as target. The GSMA, a trade body that represents mobile carriers, puts the number of mobile device users somewhere over 5 billion worldwide. A quarter of these users own more than one device. Fraudsters find the mobile market very attractive and take advantage of a gigantic economy of scale to leverage their efforts. Mobile users are often easier to target as well. Most do not protect their phones as diligently as they do their computers, failing to install security software or keep their operating systems up to date. It's not entirely our fault. Apple, on average, supports their phones, meaning you can download the latest iOS, 5 years after the launch date. Android phones can be updated for about 3 years. Infected mobile devices are a particularly insidious danger compared to a PC. Ironically, the personal computer isn't personal anymore. Phones, conversely, go with us everywhere. As a society, we've become so attached to our phones that there's now an actual word for the fear we experience when we don't have our phones. Nomophobia. A hacked microphone and camera can record everything you see and say. A hacked GPS can broadcast your every move. Even worse, mobile malware can be used to evade the multi-factor authentication, or MFA, many apps use to keep our data secure. The more popular Android platform attracts more malware than the iPhone. Keep in mind that cheap phones can come with malware pre-installed, which can be difficult to remove. Malwarebytes for Android is a big help here. Regarding the mobile malware ecosystem, the two most prevalent smartphone operating systems are Google's Android and Apple's iOS. Android leads the market with 76% of all smartphone sales, followed by iOS with 22% of all smartphones sold. No big surprise, then, that the more popular Android platform attracts more malware than the iPhone. Let's look at each of them separately. All about spyware. When you go online, don't assume that your privacy is secure. Prying eyes often follow your activity and your personal information with a pervasive form of malicious software called spyware. In fact, it's one of the oldest and most widespread threats on the Internet, secretly infecting your computer in order to initiate a variety of illegal activities, including identity theft or a data breach. It's easy to fall prey to and can be hard to get rid of, especially since you're most likely not even to be aware of it. But relax, we've got your back with all you need to know about what spyware is, how you get it, what it tries to get you to do, how to deal with it, and what to do to avoid future spyware attacks. What is spyware? Spyware, although it sounds like a James Bond gadget, it's actually a type of malware that infects your PC or mobile device and gathers information about you, including the sites you visit, the things you download, your usernames and passwords, payment information, and the emails you send and receive. No big surprise, spyware is sneaky. It finds its way onto your computer without your knowledge or permission, attaching itself to your operating system. You might even inadvertently permit spyware to install itself when you agree to the terms and conditions of a seemingly legitimate program without reading the fine print. Whatever way spyware manages to get on your PC, the method of operation is generally the same. It runs quietly in the background, maintaining a secret presence, collecting information or monitoring your activities in order to trigger malicious activities related to your computer and how you use it. And even if you discover its unwelcome presence on your system, spyware does not come with an easy uninstall feature. Spyware runs quietly in the background, collecting information. How do I get spyware? Spyware can infect your system in the same ways as any other form of malware. Here are a few of spyware's main techniques to infect your PC or mobile device. Security vulnerabilities, for example, backdoors and exploits. An exploit is a security vulnerability in your device's hardware or software that can be abused or exploited to gain unauthorized access. Software vulnerabilities are also known as software bugs, or just bugs for short. Exploits are an unintentional byproduct of hardware and software manufacturing. Mistakes happen, and bugs manage to find their way into even the most polished consumer technology. Backdoors, on the other hand, are put in place on purpose as a way to quickly gain access to your system after the fact. Sometimes the hardware and software makers themselves put the backdoors in. More often than not, however, cybercriminals will use an exploit to gain initial access to your system, then install a permanent backdoor for future access. Phishing and spoofing. These two threats are often used in tandem. Phishing happens whenever criminals try to get you to perform some sort of action, such as clicking a link to a malware-laden website, opening an infected email attachment, also known as malspam, or giving up your login credentials. Spoofing refers to the act of disguising phishing emails and websites so that they appear to be from and by individuals and organizations you trust. Misleading marketing. Spyware authors love to present their spyware programs as useful tools to download. It might be an internet accelerator, new download manager, hard disk drive cleaner, or an alternative web search service. Beware this kind of bait, because installing it can result in inadvertent spyware infection. And even if you eventually uninstall the useful tool that initially introduced the infection, the spyware remains behind and continues to function. Software bundles. Who doesn't love free software or freeware? Except when it's a host program that conceals a malicious add-on, extension, or plugin. Bundleware may look like necessary components, but they are nonetheless spyware, which, again, remains even if you uninstall the host application. Making matters worse, you may find that you actually agreed to install the spyware when you accepted the terms of service for the original application. Trojans. Broadly speaking, if malware pretends to be something it's not, that means it's a Trojan. That said, most Trojans today are not threats in and of themselves. Rather, cybercriminals use Trojans to deliver other forms of malware, like cryptojackers, ransomware, and viruses. Mobile device spyware. Mobile spyware has been around since mobile devices became mainstream. Mobile spyware is especially devious since mobile devices are small and users generally can't see what programs are running in the background as easily as they might on their laptop or desktop. Both Mac and Android devices are vulnerable to spyware. These apps include legitimate apps recompiled with harmful code, straight-up malicious ones posing as legitimate ones, often with names resembling popular apps, and apps with fake download links. Mobile spyware has been around since mobile devices became mainstream. Types of spyware. In most cases, the functionality of any spyware threat depends on the intentions of its authors. For example, some typical functions designed into spyware include the following. Password stealers are applications designed to harvest passwords from infected computers. The types of collected passwords may include stored credentials from web browsers, system login credentials, and sundry critical passwords. These passwords may be kept in a location of the attacker's choosing on the infected machine, or may be transmitted to a remote server for retrieval. Banking Trojans, for example Emotet, are applications designed to harvest credentials from financial institutions. They take advantages of vulnerabilities in browser security to modify web pages, modify transaction content, or insert additional transactions, all in a completely covert fashion, invisible to both the user and host web application. Banking Trojans may target a variety of financial institutions, including banks, brokerages, online financial portals, or digital wallets. They might also transmit collected information to remote servers for retrieval. Info stealers are applications that scan infected computers and seek out a variety of information, including usernames, passwords, email addresses, browser history, log files, system information, documents, spreadsheets, or other media files. Like banking Trojans, info stealers may exploit browser security vulnerabilities to collect personal information in online services and forums, then transmit the information to a remote server or store it on your PC locally for retrieval. Keyloggers, also referred to as system monitors, are applications designed to capture computer activity, including keystrokes, websites visited, search history, email discussions, chat room dialogue, and system credentials. They typically collect screenshots of the current window at scheduled intervals. Keyloggers may also collect functionality, allowing for stealthy capture and transmission of images and audio or video from any connected devices. They might even allow attackers to collect documents that are printed on connected printers, which can then be transmitted to a remote server or stored locally for retrieval. Mobile adware. There's not much real estate room on a mobile screen, so when a mysterious icon moves into your start screen, or scads of ads start clogging your notifications bar, you've probably got an uninvited adware guest. No big surprise, since thousands of Android apps now contain the gift that keeps on shoving icons and ads at you without warning. There are two methods through which mobiles come down with adware, through the browser and through downloaded applications. Infection by browser refers to a known exploit caused by the way most browsers handle redirections executed by JavaScript code. It's a weakness that can cause ad pop-ups, and advertising affiliates know about it and how to exploit it. If your mobile's browser has been compromised, then the best way to block the pop-ups is to use a different browser, disable JavaScript, or install a browser with ad blocking. Another remedy to pop-ups is to back out of them using Android's back key, or you can clear your history and cache, which will also stop the ads from coming back. Infection by downloaded application refers to getting infected with persistent ads through adware apps installed on a phone. They present in different forms, from full-screen ads inside and outside of the infected app to the device notifications and on the lock screen. Typically, a third-party app store installs this kind of adware app, so it's best to avoid third-party app stores, although even Google Play has been an unwitting source of adware-infected apps. Despite its being an annoying pest, take some small comfort in the fact that such adware is generally not blatantly malicious, threatening your device like malware might. Many of the free apps you download to your phone often include third-party ad content, providing software developers an alternative revenue stream so you can have their offering for free. Still, adware is not generally benevolent, so, faced with a free app that stuffs your device with adware and a paid program that plays nicely, consider the best choice for you. Who do adware authors target? Conventional wisdom is adware's main intended victims are individuals as opposed to businesses, and it follows the individual user across any path of opportunity, from Windows PCs and Macs to mobile phones and virtually all browsers. It calls to potential victims through the too good to be true model, offering something for nothing in a scam that suggests new games, movies, or special deals. Adware's main intended victims are individuals. How to remove adware. If you suspect adware has compromised your Mac or Windows PC, there are a few steps you can take to remedy the infection. First, back up your files regularly. You can try to remove the adware through the pertinent utility on your operating system, that is, the ad remove on the Windows platform, but this requires that you can identify the adware's program name or that the adware doesn't have a resuscitator, which are files designed to bring a program back to life after uninstalling. If that is the case, then download a legitimate cybersecurity program such as Malwarebytes for Windows, Malwarebytes for Mac, Malwarebytes for Android, Malwarebytes for Chromebook, and Malwarebytes for iOS. All are free to try and are designed to search and destroy adware, pups, and any new form of malware lurking on the scene. Run a scan, and, if there are any nasties hiding away in your machine, it'll bag, tag, and dump them for you. At this point, it's a good idea to change your password, not only for your PC, but also your email, your social media accounts, your favorite shopping sites, and your online billing centers. How do I protect myself from adware? Use caution and practice safe computing. That means thinking twice before immediately downloading and installing new software, especially freeware. Read the terms and conditions like a lawyer before agreeing to them, and quit out of the download process if anything smells like a permission to load adware. Avoid torrent sites, illegal downloads, and never even open an app from an unknown source, even if it comes to you under the guise of a known email contact. Finally, even before all of the above precautions, download a reputable cybersecurity program for your PC or mobile phone. Perform scans frequently and keep your updates, up to date. Of course, we recommend any of our Malwarebytes family of anti-malware products as a prudent measure. Malwarebytes for Windows, Malwarebytes for Mac, Malwarebytes for Android, Malwarebytes for Chromebook, and Malwarebytes for iOS. By arming yourself with knowledge and protecting yourself with a robust cybersecurity program, you can take the steps necessary for an adware-free life online. See all of our reporting on adware at Malwarebytes Labs. How can I tell if my Android device has malware? There are a few unmistakable signs your Android phone is infected. That said, you may be infected if you see any of the following. A sudden appearance of pop-ups with invasive advertisements. If they appear out of nowhere and send you to sketchy websites, you've probably installed something that hides adware within it. It suffices to say, don't click on these ads. A puzzling increase in data usage. Malware chews up your data plan by displaying ads and sending out the purloined information from your phone. Bogus charges on your bill. This happens when malicious software makes calls and sends texts to premium numbers. Your battery runs down quickly. Malware is a resource burden, gulping down your battery's juice faster than normal. Your contacts receive strange emails and texts from your phone. Mobile malware often spreads from one device to another by means of emails and texts containing malicious links. Your phone is hot. A hot phone generally means the processor is being taxed by a lot of resource-intensive activity. Malware? Possibly. The Loapi Trojan can push the processor to the point of overheating the phone, which makes the battery bulge, leaving your phone for dead. Apps you didn't download. Sometimes you download seemingly legitimate apps that have malware buried in the code. This malware, in turn, downloads other malicious apps. It helps to stick to trusted apps from known sources, but even the Google Play Store itself has dozens of malicious apps sneak through every year. Wi-Fi and Internet connections turn themselves on. This is another way malware propagates, ignoring your preferences and opening up infection channels. How can I tell if my iPhone or iPad has malware? Good news, Apple fans. Malware is not a significant issue on the iPhone. That is not to say it doesn't exist, but it's extremely rare. In fact, suffering a malware infection on an iPhone mostly only happens under 3 extraordinary circumstances. While outright malware infections are unlikely, using an iPhone doesn't protect you at all against robocalls and text message scams. 1. A targeted attack by a nation-state level adversary. In this case, a government has either created or purchased, at a cost of millions of dollars, a piece of malware engineered to take advantage of some obscure security hole in iOS. Don't be shocked, because all devices have some sort of vulnerability. To be sure, Apple has done a fine job of securing iOS, even preventing any apps, including security software, from scanning the phone or other apps on the device's system. This approach, known as a walled garden, is why there are so few examples of iOS malware. Creating it is simply too expensive, difficult, and time-consuming for most cybercriminals. One particularly noteworthy instance happened in 2016 when an internationally recognized human rights defender based in the United Arab Emirates, UAE, received SMS text messages on his iPhone promising new secrets about detainees tortured in UAE jails. The targeted recipient was invited to click on an included link. He didn't, but instead sent the message to cybersecurity researchers, who identified it as containing an exploit that would have turned the activist's phone into a digital spy. The zero-day vulnerabilities used in this attack have since been patched. 2. An attack on a jailbroken iPhone. Jailbreaking an iPhone removes the restrictions and limitations Apple imposes as part of its walled garden approach to software design, mainly to allow the installation of apps from outside Apple's App Store. Apple carefully vets the app developers it carries, even though malware piggybacking on a legitimate app has happened. 3. An attack on an outdated iPhone. On August 29, 2019, Apple fans' heads exploded. There was a series of iOS exploits being used to infect normal, non-jailbroken iPhones with malware. The attack started when victims landed on a hacked website. From there, the malicious websites infected devices with malware, using a series of exploits to get root access. Once the infection takes root, attackers are able to see your stored passwords, texts, call history, photos, contacts, notes, and recordings. They can even track your GPS location. To this day, it's unclear which sites served up the infection, but the exploits have been patched, and it's very unlikely you'll catch this infection. That being said, if you're using an outdated phone, older than iOS 12.1.4, and you never reset your phone, you could be vulnerable. One more point about Android and iOS threats. There are 2 more cyber threats that affect both iOS and Android users: phishing attacks and scam calls. As it pertains to phishing, if you tap a link in a message from an unknown source or someone you know who's being spoofed, it could send you to a site faked to look like a legitimate site that asks for your login and other personal information. Bottom line, always proceed with caution. Regarding scam calls, They're the bane of our modern existence. Calls from numbers you didn't know, sometimes in your own area code, with threatening pre-recorded messages purporting to be from various government agencies. Whoever the caller claims to be, unless it's from a political candidate, airline, charity, healthcare provider, school, or debt collector, it's probably illegal. Who does malware target? The answer here is, take your pick. There are billions of consumer-owned devices out there. They're connected to banks, retail store accounts, and anything else worth stealing. It's a broad attack surface for adware and spyware, keyloggers, and malvertising, as well as an attractive method for lazy criminals to create and distribute malware to as many targets as possible with proportionately little effort. If you use your smartphone or tablet in the workplace, hackers can turn their attack to your employer. While not currently popular with cybercriminals, crypto miners seem to be equal opportunity about their targets, going after both individuals and businesses. Ransomware, on the other hand, targets businesses, hospitals, municipalities, and retail store systems in disproportionately greater numbers than consumers. Also, it's not just consumers that mobile spyware criminals target. If you use your smartphone or tablet in the workplace, hackers can turn their attack to your employer through vulnerabilities in mobile devices. Moreover, your corporation's incident response team may not detect breaches that originate through a mobile device's use of corporate email. To repeat, not all the apps available through Apple's App Store and Google Play are desirable, and the problem is even more acute with third-party app stores. While the App Store operators try to prevent malicious apps from penetrating their site, some inevitably slip through. These apps can steal user information, attempt to extort money from users, try to access corporate networks to which the device is connected, and force users to view unwanted ads or engage in other types of unsanitary activity. How to remove malware. Follow these 3 easy steps to remove malware from your device. 1. Download and install a good cybersecurity program. As it happens, Malwarebytes has programs for every platform we've discussed in this article: Windows, Mac, Android, and Chromebook. 2. Run a scan using your new program. Even if you don't opt for Malwarebytes Premium, the free version of Malwarebytes is still great at removing malware. The free version, however, does not proactively stop threats from getting on your system in the first place. 3. Change all your passwords. Now that you know you're not being snooped on by some form of malware, you need to reset your passwords, not only for your PC or mobile device, but also your email, your social media accounts, your favorite shopping sites, and your online banking and billing centers. This may sound paranoid, but with spyware, banking trojans, and the like, you just don't know for sure what data was captured before you stopped the infection. As always, use some form of multi-factor authentication, at least 2-factor, and don't think you need to memorize all your passwords. Use a password manager instead. If your iPhone or iPad is infected with malware, as improbable as that may be, things are a little trickier. Apple does not permit scans of either device's system or other files, though Malwarebytes for iOS, for example, will screen and block scam calls and texts. Your only option is to wipe your phone with a factory reset, then restore it from your backup in iCloud or iTunes. If you didn't back up your phone, then you're starting over from scratch. How to protect against malware. In no order, here's our tips for protecting against malware. 1. Pay attention to the domain and be wary if the site isn't a top-level domain, that is, .com, mil, net, org, edu, or biz, to name a few. 2. Use strong passwords with multi-factor authentication. A password manager can be a big help here. 3. Avoid clicking on pop-up ads while browsing the Internet. 4. Avoid opening email attachments from unknown senders. 5. Do not click on strange, unverified links in emails, texts, and social media messages. 6. Don't download software from untrustworthy websites or peer-to-peer file transfer networks. 7. Stick to official apps from Google Play and Apple's App Store on Android, OS X, and iOS, and don't jailbreak your phone. PC users should check the ratings and reviews before installing any software. 8. Make sure your operating system, browsers, and plugins are patched and up to date. 9. Delete any programs you don't use anymore. 10. Back up your data regularly. If your files become damaged, encrypted, or otherwise unacceptable, you'll be covered. 11. Download and install a cybersecurity program that actively scans and blocks threats from getting on your device. Malwarebytes, for example, offers proactive cybersecurity program for Windows, Mac, Android, and Chromebook. Plus, our latest offering, Malwarebytes Browser Guard. It's free, it's the only browser extension that can stop tech support scams along with any other unsafe and unwanted content that comes at you through your browser. How does malware affect my business? As noted in the Malwarebytes Lab's ransomware retrospective, ransomware attacks on businesses went up 365% from second quarter 2018 to second quarter 2019. So why are cybercriminals bullish on business attacks? The answer is simple. Businesses present a broader attack surface and more bang for the buck. In one noteworthy example, the Emotet banking Trojan hobbled critical systems for the city of Allentown, Pennsylvania, requiring help from Microsoft's incident response team to clean up and racking up remediation costs to the tune of $1 million. In another example, the SamsRam ransomware brought the city of Atlanta to its knees by taking down several essential city services, including revenue collection. Ultimately, the SamSam attack cost Atlanta $2.6 million to remediate. And that's just the cleanup costs. The costs involved with the data breach and the resulting cases of identity theft are through the roof. The Ponemon Institute's 2019 Cost of a Data Breach report pegs the current average cost at $3.92 million. On the high end, the settlement costs from the 2017 Equifax data breach, which started with a simple and easy to protect against SQL injection, are reportedly around $650 million. Most malware attacks on businesses as of late have been the result of TrickBot. First detected in 2016, the TrickBot banking Trojan has already gone through several iterations as its authors strengthen its evasion, propagation, and encryption capabilities. Considering the tremendous cost associated with a malware attack and the current rise of ransomware and banking Trojans in particular, here's some tips on how to protect your business from malware. Implement network segmentation. Spreading your data onto smaller subnetworks reduces your attack surface. Smaller targets are harder to hit. This can help contain a breach to only a few endpoints instead of your entire infrastructure. Enforce the principle of least privilege, POLP. In short, give users the access level they need to do their job, and nothing more. Again, this helps to contain damages from breaches or ransomware attacks. Back up all your data. This goes for all the endpoints on your network and network shares too. If your data is archived, you can always wipe an infected system and restore from a backup. Educate end users on how to spot malspam. Users should be wary of unsolicited emails and attachments from unknown senders. When handling attachments, your users should avoid executing executable files and avoid enabling macros on Office files. When in doubt, reach out. Train end users to inquire further if suspicious emails appear to be from a trusted source. One quick phone call or email goes a long way toward avoiding malware. Educate staff on creating strong passwords. While you're at it, implement some form of multi-factor authentication, two-factor at a bare minimum. Patch and update your software. Microsoft releases security updates the second Tuesday of every month, and many other software makers have followed suit. Stay in the loop on important security updates by subscribing to the Microsoft Security Response Center blog. Expedite the patch process by launching updates at each endpoint from one central agent, as opposed to leaving it up to each end user to complete on their own time. Get rid of abandonware. Sometimes it's hard to get rid of old software that's past its expiration date, especially at a large business where the purchasing cycle moves with the urgency of a sloth. But discontinued software is truly the worst-case scenario for any network or system administrator. Cybercriminals actively seek out systems running outdated and obsolete software, so replace it as soon as possible. Get proactive about endpoint protection. Malwarebytes, for example, has multiple options for your business with endpoint protection, endpoint security, and endpoint protection and response. And for small businesses looking to protect up to 20 devices, check out Malwarebytes for Teams. Personal security. Bonus part. How to secure your home network. Bonus part. Understanding home wireless network security. Knowing how to secure home Wi-Fi networks is critical to protecting your devices from hackers and cybercriminals. If someone gains access to your local network, they can easily access your personal data by listening to your internet traffic. Once this occurs, the cybercriminal can launch various attacks against your Wi-Fi security, including man-in-the-middle attacks, ransomware, or outright data theft. The process of securing your home Wi-Fi security system against these attacks is tedious at worst and incredibly simple at best. But as cybersecurity becomes a bigger threat, it's more important than ever to protect your network against cyber attacks. How to protect your home security network. Chained-up router. We compiled 10 of the best ways to increase security of your home Wi-Fi. And even if you can't do them all, simply following several of these tips will help you lower the hacking risk that faces your Wi-Fi-enabled devices and personal data. 1. Change the default name and password of your home network. The easiest thing you can do to secure your home internet connection is to change the default name. This name is also known as the SSID, or Service Set Identifier, and you can alter it by following these steps. Open Windows Command Prompt. Type in ipconfig. Locate your IP address. Type your IP address into your browser's address box. Enter your router's login credentials. Open Wi-Fi settings. Change SSID and password. When changing your SSID and Wi-Fi password, use a longer phrase that's unique to that device. Don't use any obvious or personal information, such as your name or birthday, during this process. 2. Limit access to your wireless network. This may seem obvious, but avoid giving people you don't know access to your home network. The more people who have your wireless network credentials, the higher the risk of your data falling into the wrong hands. For example, if a contractor is in your home to perform repairs, they don't need access to your home Wi-Fi network. While there are exceptions to this rule, such as someone from your internet provider's company, avoid allowing unknown devices to connect to your home network unless there's an important reason to do so. 3. Create a home guest network. Instead of giving out your wireless credentials to anyone who needs it, let them connect to a guest Wi-Fi network. The guest networking option allows you to set up a separate Wi-Fi network that provides internet access but hides any shared folders, printers, storage devices, and network devices connected to your primary wireless network. Most wireless routers have this feature, which you can access via the device settings. When you set up the guest network, create a separate guest SSID and guest Wi-Fi password. 4. Turn on Wi-Fi network encryption. Most WPA2 and WPA3 routers offer an encryption option. You can turn on this feature in your router's Wi-Fi settings, which you can access with your IP address and router login credentials. When you enable encryption for your Wi-Fi network, it encrypts any data sent between your wireless channel and your device. This will prevent anyone from eavesdropping on your Wi-Fi network without logging into your Wi-Fi network. Just remember that you'll need to manually reconnect all your devices to your wireless network after you enable this. 5. Turn on your router firewall. Most wireless routers are preloaded with excellent hardware-based firewall options. A good firewall helps to prevent unwanted traffic from entering or leaving your wireless network without your knowledge. Router firewalls are often not turned on by default, which means you need to activate yours. To do so, log into your router's settings using your IP address to enable the option. You may need to look under your router's advanced settings to find the firewall toggle. Using your router's firewall may slow down your internet speeds. As a workaround, you can turn off the firewall when you're gaming or performing other tasks that require a faster connection. Once you're done, just turn it back on. 6. Turn off your Wi-Fi network when you leave home. It may be too much of a hassle to turn off your Wi-Fi network every time you walk out the door, but it's important to disable your home wireless network if you leave for any extended period of time. This will guarantee that your network is completely safe. 7. Update your router's firmware. Your router's firmware is an incredibly important piece of the secure network connection puzzle. Most wireless routers don't auto-update their software, so you must do it manually. To update your router's firmware, visit the manufacturer's website and download the firmware update file. Then install it directly to your wireless router. Every router manufacturer has a slightly different process, so look for instructions on how to do it on their website. 8. Switch to a WPA3 router. WPA3 routers were first released in 2018, and they come with more robust security protocols to address many of the vulnerabilities found in WPA2 routers. If you rent your router from your ISP, chances are it may be a WPA2 device. In that case, you'll have to purchase a separate WPA3 router. While it may be an unplanned expense, a WPA3 router will enhance your home wireless network security. It will also likely increase the strength of your Wi-Fi signal. 9. Disable remote access. Most routers have a remote access feature that allows you to access your Wi-Fi network from anywhere you have an internet connection. This may be a convenient way to manage your wireless network from another location, but it may also lead to network security issues. The potential for hacks only increases if you haven't changed the default router credentials, which means that anyone could access your wireless password and, as a result, your network. Unless you absolutely must use the remote feature, it's best to turn it off. It's simply too easy for hackers to potentially gain your legitimate credentials to access your wireless network. To disable this feature, look for the remote access settings in your router's interface. 10. Place your router in the middle of your home. Most Wi-Fi network signals are strong enough that someone outside of your home could see the connection on their device. To prevent this, you can simply move your router to a more central location in your home. This is an easy, non-technical step to prevent unwanted access from someone sitting in a vehicle across the street from your home. As a bonus, it will provide better internet access in all areas of your home. If you can't move your router to a central area because of your home's layout, you should at least move your wireless router away from windows. Windows don't block the Wi-Fi signal. Depending upon the signal strength, it is possible someone could access your network from outside your property. Summary: learning how to secure your home's Wi-Fi is an essential step to ensure your data is safe from cybercriminals. Given how many of our devices connect to our network, it's crucial that you take every step possible to stop bad actors in their tracks. If you can't realistically follow all the tips we outlined above, at least try a couple of them to make small, simple changes. For example, just moving your router to the middle of your home and updating your router's firmware can stop more casual hackers who may give up at the first sign of resistance. Additional advanced security tips. Consider changing your router's IP address. Default router IP addresses are easy for hackers to find. Sometimes they can even be found online. For extra protection from router attacks, you can change your router's address. Log into your router admin console and search for Network Settings or LAN DHCP. Change your IP address and save. Note the new address. It should be enough simply to substitute a couple of numbers. Once changed, you use the new address to access your router settings. If for any reason you need to change your IP address back again, you can restore your router to its factory settings. Set up a separate network for IoT devices. The Internet of Things, or IoT, is a term used to describe physical devices other than computers, phones, and servers, which connect to the Internet and can collect and share data. Examples of IoT devices include wearable fitness trackers, smart refrigerators, smart watches, and voice assistants like Amazon Echo and Google Home. The Internet of Things has cybersecurity implications. The greater the number of devices connected to the Internet, the more potential entry points for hackers. Not all IoT devices have a great security track record. For those looking to maximize their router security and avoid router attacks, you could set up a separate Wi-Fi network for your IoT devices. This is known as a VLAN, a Virtual Local Area Network. With a VLAN, you can ensure your most valuable devices, computers and phones, which contain the most sensitive data, are on one network, and your less secure IoT devices are on another. This removes the risk of poorly secured IoT devices acting as potential entry points for hackers to compromise your computers or phones. Using a VLAN doesn't limit functionality, since most IoT devices are controlled through smartphone apps connected to cloud services. Most of these devices don't need to communicate with mobile phones or computers directly over the local network after their initial setup if they have internet access. Turn off Universal Plug-and-Play. Universal Plug-and-Play, UPnP, helps devices in your home discover your network and then communicate with their manufacturer for firmware updates and supplies. UPnP is a critical element of the Internet of Things, but unfortunately it's also a channel for hackers to infect devices and include them in botnets. UPnP can also be used by malware programs to obtain high-level access to your router's security settings. Your router has to cooperate with the UPnP system so that your household gadgets receive access to the Internet. Because many devices don't have password protection or use the same password for all devices, these smart pieces of equipment can be a security vulnerability. UPnP helps a device get set up, but once it is working, it's advisable to switch off its UPnP capabilities and turn off UPnP compatibility in your router. Use MAC address filtering to keep unwanted devices off your network. Many routers allow users to restrict which devices are allowed on their Wi-Fi networks based on their MAC address. MAC stands for Media Access Controller, and a MAC address is used to identify devices on a network. Enabling MAC address filtering can prevent attackers from connecting to a Wi-Fi network, even if they know its password. Your router's console will contain a menu item called MAC filtering or MAC address filtering. Every device that can connect to a network has a MAC address that is unique. You must find the address of each device you wish to allow on your network, and then enter those addresses into the router and turn on the MAC address filtering option. It's worth noting that MAC addresses can be faked, and sophisticated attackers know how to exploit this. An attacker still needs to know one of the valid addresses for that network to break in, but this is not difficult for anyone experienced in using network sniffer tools. That said, MAC filtering prevents average hackers from gaining network access, so it provides another layer of protection when securing a router. Think about where you position your router. If you can, locate your router in the center of your home. Not only does this distribute network access more evenly, it also helps put your network out of reach or view from the hackers. It's a good idea to keep routers away from windows and external doors if you can. Remember that routers radiate above and below as well as horizontally. If you have a two-story home, placing the router on a high shelf on the lower level will help ensure that the upper level will receive coverage as well as downstairs. Turn your network off when not at home. One of the easiest ways to protect your home network is to turn it off when you're not at home. Turning your Wi-Fi off when you're away reduces the chances of hackers attempting to break into your home network when you're not at home. As well as reducing security risks, unplugging the router when you're not there also prevents it from being damaged by power surges. Keep your devices healthy. The computers and other devices in your home can provide entry points for hackers to get onto your router. Many of the devices connected to your network will be portable, for example, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. Portable devices are more likely to get infected since they connect to other networks and potentially use public Wi-Fi. There is more risk of virus infection and hacking attempts outside your home. Equipment that never leaves your home is only exposed to one internet access point, making it less likely to be infected. To keep your home router safe, remember to practice good cybersecurity hygiene. Keep software up to date and allow automatic updates. Patches and new releases for operating systems and applications are often issued to plug security weaknesses. Protect devices with long, difficult-to-guess passwords, which are all different from each other. A password manager can help with this. Top 10 Personal Cybersecurity Tips. 1. Keep your software up to date. As we saw from the stats above, ransomware attacks were a major attack vector of 2017 for both businesses and consumers. One of the most important cybersecurity tips to mitigate ransomware is patching outdated software, both operating system and applications. This helps remove critical vulnerabilities that hackers use to access your devices. Here are a few quick tips to get you started. Turn on automatic system updates for your device. Make sure your desktop web browser uses automatic security updates. Keep your web browser plugins like Flash, Java, etc. updated. Check out our blog on patch management best practices. 2. Use antivirus protection and firewall. Antivirus AV protection software has been the most prevalent solution to fight malicious attacks. AV software blocks malware and other malicious viruses from entering your device and compromising your data. Using antivirus software from trusted vendors and only run one AV tool on your device. Using a firewall is also important when defending your data against malicious attacks. A firewall helps screen out hackers, viruses, and other malicious activities that occurs over the Internet and determines what traffic is allowed to enter your device. Windows and Mac OS X comes with their respective firewalls, aptly named Windows Firewall and Mac Firewall. Your router should also have a firewall built in to prevent attacks on your network. 3. Use strong passwords and use a password management tool. You've probably heard that strong passwords are critical to online security. The truth is, passwords are important in keeping hackers out of your data. According to the National Institute of Standards and Technology's NIST 2017 New Password Policy Framework, you should consider dropping the crazy complex mixture of uppercase letters, symbols, and numbers. Instead, opt for something more user-friendly, but with at least 8 characters and a maximum length of 64 characters. Don't use the same password twice. The password should contain at least 1 lowercase letter, 1 uppercase letter, 1 number, and 4 symbols, but not the following: ampersand, %, hash, or @. Choose something that is easy to remember and never leave a password hint out in the open or make it publicly available for hackers to see. Reset your password when you forget it, but change it once per year as a general refresh. 4. Use two-factor or multi-factor authentication. Two-factor or multi-factor authentication is a service that adds additional layers of security to the standard password method of online identification. Without two-factor authentication, you would normally enter a username and password. But with two-factor, you would be prompted to enter one additional authentication method, such as a personal identification code, another password, or even fingerprint. With multi-factor authentication, you would be prompted to enter more than 2 additional authentication methods after entering your username and password. According to NIST, an SMS delivery should not be used during two-factor authentication because malware can be used to attack mobile phone networks and can compromise data during the process. Phishing scams are nastier than ever this year. In a phishing scheme attempt, the attacker poses as someone or something the sender is not, to trick the recipient into divulging credentials, clicking a malicious link, or opening an attachment that infects the user's system with malware, Trojan, or zero-day vulnerability exploit. This often leads to a ransomware attack. In fact, 90% of ransomware attacks originate from phishing attempts. A few important cybersecurity tips to remember about phishing schemes include: bottom line, don't open email from people you don't know. Know which links are safe and which are not. Hover over a link to discover where it directs to. Be suspicious of the emails sent to you in general. Look and see where it came from and if there are grammatical errors. Malicious links can come from friends who have been infected too, so be extra careful. 6. Protect your sensitive personal identifiable information, or PII. Personally identifiable information, PII, is any information that can be used by a cybercriminal to identify or locate an individual. PII includes information such as name, address, phone numbers and date of birth, social security number, IP address, location details, and any other physical or digital identity data. Your credit card information should be protected by companies if they follow the PCI DSS standards. In the new always-on world of social media, you should be very cautious about the information you include online. It is recommended that you only show the very minimum about yourself on social media. Consider reviewing your privacy settings across all your social media accounts, particularly Facebook. Adding your home address, birth date, or any other PII information will dramatically increase your risk of a security breach. Hackers use this information to their advantage. 7. Use your mobile devices securely. Mobile devices now a target to more than 1.5 million new incidents of mobile malware. Here are some quick tips for mobile device security. Create a difficult mobile passcode, not your birth date or bank PIN. Install apps from trusted sources. Keep your device updated. Hackers use vulnerabilities in unpatched older operating systems. Avoid sending PII or sensitive information over text messages or email. Leverage Find My iPhone or the Android Device Manager to prevent loss or theft. Perform regular mobile backups using iCloud or enabling backup in sync from Android. 8. Back up your data regularly. Backing up your data regularly is an overlooked step in personal online security. The top IT and security managers follow a simple rule called the 3-2-1 backup rule. Essentially, you will keep 3 copies of your data on 2 different types of media, local and external hard drive, and 1 copy in an off-site location, cloud storage. If you become a victim of ransomware or malware, the only way to restore your data is to erase your systems and restore with a recently performed backup. 9. Don't use public Wi-Fi. Don't use a public Wi-Fi without using a virtual private network or VPN. By using VPN software, the traffic between your device and the VPN server is encrypted. This means it's much more difficult for a cybercriminal to obtain access to your data on your device. Use your cell network if you don't have a VPN when security is important. 10. Review your online accounts and credit reports regularly for changes. With the recent Equifax breach, it's more important than ever for consumers to safeguard their online accounts and monitor their credit reports. A credit freeze is the most effective way for you to protect your personal credit information from cybercriminals right now. Essentially, it allows you to lock your credit and use a personal identification number or PIN that only you will know. You can then use this PIN when you need to apply for credit. Top causes of security breaches. Hacking, phishing, and malware incidents are becoming the #1 cause of security breaches today. But what's more troubling, these hacking attempts are the result of human errors in some way. Education and awareness are critically important in the fight against cybercriminal activity and preventing security breaches. Conclusion. Cybercriminals are getting smarter and savvier with their attacks nowadays, and businesses with limited or no cybersecurity awareness training programs are at risk. Even the best security solutions in the world would not do any good if the users were not cyber aware and know what they're doing. Thus, employees within organizations need to start taking initiatives to strengthen their cyber line of defense. We'll outline the top reasons why every company should invest in cybersecurity awareness training programs for employees and how they can benefit organizations. Attacks are on the rise as more employees are working from home. Numerous organizations were not ready for the dramatic change that this pandemic caused and were forced to work remotely. Cybercriminals are jumping on this and are presently utilizing this change in the work environment to go after unsuspecting and unsecured devices. It was noticed that a flood in remote work has expanded the use of potentially vulnerable services, unpatched Windows machines, and an absence of security at home, enhancing the danger to people and companies. Thus, it is crucial for employees to take the right security measures to avoid falling victim to potential cyber threats during these crucial times. To upgrade information security standards. Every organization is working towards putting security policies and controls in place. Cybersecurity training programs shed light on these policies and show employees how various procedures and frameworks coordinate and work together. Training modules make sure staff members understand challenges faced by security issues and know how to deal with any problems that crop up. On a broader scale, it helps employees track security issues that surface at the roots and mitigate them before they escalate and become worse. Most cybercrime incidents begin on a smaller scale and do not become a full-blown data breach until it's too late. Thus, cybersecurity training programs help to avoid such cases by educating users and upgrading information security protocols. To combat issues regarding human error. According to some cybersecurity intelligence indices, 95% of cybersecurity breaches are caused by human error, and firewalls cannot keep a staff member from succumbing to a phishing email. Your organization could burn through millions on cutting-edge security software, but none of this will matter if your employees are not appropriately prepared on the best way to spot and react to cyber attacks. It is much simpler for cybercriminals to go through a short amount of time creating a phishing email than to spend months investigating zero-day vulnerabilities. On the off chance that your workers are not prepared for a cyber attack, the unfortunate truth is that your company is not either. Thus, a training program can help raise the awareness and knowledge toward being more susceptible towards any threat, from phishing to physical security. To reduce the anxiety and stress levels at work. Everyone can be on edge during the aftermath of a cybercrime incident. There is a lack of trust and an air of negativity at work after a case. Due to the lack of cyber awareness, employees do not know what went wrong or if anybody at work played a role in the event. A good employee cybersecurity training program can take the stress away at work by instilling employees with confidence about technology and cybersecurity procedures. When employees know how to interact with confidential data and communicate with security teams and staff members online, they are less likely to make mistakes. To prevent monetary damages to your organization. Often when security budgets are compiled, the focus is primarily on technology such as software and AI. But there is one significant area of cybersecurity budgeting that can immensely affect an organization, yet is regularly neglected: employees. When employees have the best security awareness training, they are more likely to promptly trace potential threats and report any incoming incidents. Operational disruptions within the organization can be prevented, and IT security teams can quarantine threats before they escalate, which would evidently cause more financial damage. But all this is made possible when everybody works in a coordinated way, which happens when there is enough cyber awareness. Compliance requirements for organizations are progressively centered on employee training. Compliance like HIPAA and PCI DSS all have requirements that emphasize employee training. This is because they understand the significance of getting each employee within an organization trained, not simply the IT division. This also includes guaranteeing that all employees are completely prepared for these regulations and comprehend the obligations they hold. Regulations such as GDPR and CCPA all include a set of rules that must be obeyed. Otherwise, an organization could be fined and ultimately jeopardize their reputation. Hence, with good security awareness training, your organization can be ready in the event of a cyber breach. Final words. We live in a digital age where our personal and professional lives are intertwined on the Internet. Almost everyone is active online, uses technology, and is on their mobile device, making it easier than ever for hackers to locate new targets. Through adequate security awareness training and cybercrime protection programs, companies can learn how to protect themselves from emerging cybercrime threats. Hackers are growing intelligent, mastering innovative and sophisticated ways of penetrating networks and IT systems. This makes it imperative for businesses not to neglect security awareness training and instead incorporate it into organizations. Employee cybersecurity training is thus no longer optional, but a must in order to engage, communicate, and work productively inside organizations without facing trust issues. Always remember that your knowledge and actions do matter.